Have the princess told you? Chui Luo's face collapsed. Oh, of course she told me all. Bai Qiran sneered, akimbo. Do you really think she is on your side? She's just a half-human half-demon child, the result of the demon emperor came to our world and raped human females. When the Kama Sutra sect killed her mother and forced her to join, did the demon clan do anything? Do you think that giving her an empty title and she was willing to follow you back to the demon world and be loyal to the demon clan? Chui Luo bit her lower lip and said nothing. When she was forced by her master to become a tool to gather male essence, that's me who rescued her, killed her master, helped her become the leader of the Kama Sutra sect, helped her to implement her reforms and improve the relationship between the evil alliance and the righteous alliance. At this moment, of course, she is going to help me. Bai Qiran looked at Chui Luo with disdain and continued. Of course, I'm naturally on her side. I know what game the demon emperor is playing. He wants to get his blood back to help calm the demon world, or provoke a war to pass on internal conflicts, right? As long as Su Xiangxue disagree, don't even think about it. I tell you, this time it's moon-worshipping sect's fault. You killed half of them, I will still let you go, but the next time it happened, I'll come to the demon world myself and cut the demon emperor's head. If someone else said so, Chui Luo might sneer, but Bai Qiran had already proven his strength as early as 2,000 years ago. Chui Luo gradually calmed down as her fear gradually overwhelmed her anger and hatred. Bai Qiran, you. She straightened up and wanted to continue to say something, but suddenly there was a sound of music came from the forests, interrupting their confrontation. Finally willing to come out. Hearing this sound, Bai Qiran murmured and Chui Luo's face changed. Princess. Okay, Chui Luo, stop here. Mr. Bai, please don't stimulate her nerves anymore. A voice that sounded like a yellow warbler came out of the valley, and the sound alone made the bones softened. Anyway, Tang Ruowei and Zui Yanfei clearly saw that at the moment Pei Shan and Pei Dao heard this voice, their whole body shook twice as if they were hit by lightning. When the words fell, a white figure came close, and a beautiful lady appeared in front of everyone. She covered her face with a white veil and only exposed a pair of beautiful eyes. The plain white, simple long dress, when be worn by her, radiated a special charm. This beauty held a jade music instrument and stood between Bai Qiran and Chui Luo. Her eyes swept across the audience and paused indistinctly on Tang Ruowei's body before placing it on Bai Qiran and Chui Luo. By her eyes, even Zui Yanfei and Tang Ruowei felt a little blushing, not to mention Pei Shan and Pei Dao on the side. Their saliva already came out like spring, yet they themselves did not notice. Chui Luo. Su Xiangxue said softly to Cui Luo on the side. Princess Bai Ling and her maids have been brought over by me, please take them away. When you go back, please tell the White Fox King. This world is sinister, he should discipline his daughter better. If she comes to 9 provinces next time, then we humans have no obligation to help him continue to find his daughter. Princess. Chui Luo hesitated and asked. Did the Qingming Sword Patriarch just say the truth? It is true. Su Xiangxue nodded without hesitation. If human and demon start the war, I must stand on the side of Mr. Bai. Just go back. Do you think that the demon emperor really doesn't know where my heart is? She looked at Chui Luo and gently opened her lips. Come on, Chui Luo, although it may be useless, I still advise you to let go of the hatred. Princess, are you also telling Chui Luo those principles? Chui Luo excited. No, I am a demonic cultivator. Of course, I believe that hatred must be reported, but your hatred obviously cannot be reported. Su Xiangxue gave Bai Qiran a glance. Furthermore, although I didn't witness the war between human and demon, after listening to it, I thought that your mother deserves to die. Live well, Chui Luo, in this life, you should live for yourself, not for your mother. Chui Luo's life is only for revenge. Chui Luo replied stubbornly. Ah, then you go. Su Xiangxue sighed. Princess Bai Ling is on the way. Goodbye. Chui Luo gave Su Xiangxue a complicated look and said goodbye. Chui Luo is leaving. Princess, please be cherished. I remember. Seeing her turn away, Bai Qiran suddenly said. There is no next time. Chui Luo gritted her teeth, glanced at Bai Qiran, then turned into a vine, dived into the soil and disappeared. After throwing Pei Shan and Pei Dao to the golden core old man and telling him to visit soon, Bai Qiran brought Tang Ruowei and Zui Yanfei to Su Xiangxue. Let me introduce to you, this is Su Xiangxue, the current leader of the Kama Sutra sect, and one of the 3 big shots of the evil alliance. Bai Qiran patted Su Xiangxue's incensed shoulders as if she were an iron buddy. Remember to keep away from her when you meet her next time. Zui Yanfei and Tang Ruowei looked at each other, but when they saw the smile in Su Xiangshua's eyes, they bowed politely. Nice to meet you, sect leader Su. Actually, don't be so restrictive. This one is a reformist. Under her leadership, the Kama Sutra sect has not killed anyone. At present, the chain store of Pleasure Realm has opened in several provinces, and it has been well received. Bai Qiran rolled his eyes and said, of course, this one in front of me is still not to be underestimated. The exercise she cultivated is phantom charm combined with the demon race's royal techniques. After my improvement, it has reached the level of being able to call the sky down in rain or blizzard. She can make any cultivator under the nascent soul stage orgasm uncontrollably. Therefore, if you are courageous, you can call her mistress of pleasure flood. Su Xiangxue rolled her eyes and raised her hand to cover Bai Qiran's mouth. Then she smiled at Tang Ruowei and Zui Yanfei. Don't listen to him talking nonsense. Two little girls, if something happens in the future, you can go to the Pleasure Realm to ask for help, just say my name. So beautiful, hold on. Tang Ruowei shook her head diligently to remind herself of her sexual orientation, then looked at Bai Qiran and asked. Sect leader Su, are you related to the demon race? Yes. Bai Qiran glanced at Su Xiangxue. Su Xiangxue nodded to him indifferently, so Bai Qiran continued to say. She has half of the dragon blood on her body, and the current emperor of the demon race is a 9-headed dragon. What do you mean by the so-called demon race, demon emperor, demon world? Tang Ruowei continued to ask. The demon race is our collective name for all non-human living beings that have spirits. Plants, rocks, animals, monsters, after awakened spirits and practice transformation we call them demons. As the name suggests, the demon emperor is the demon race's leader, who controls the demon world, and the demon world is another world that was opened in the void by the first-generation demon emperor countless years ago and is connected to the 9 provinces through a rift in space. Bai Qiran explained. The woman just now is the messenger from the demon race. And the white fox is the daughter of one of the 10 demon kings in the demon race. Oh. Tang Ruowei thought about it and finally asked the question he always wanted to ask. So why does she hate you so much? You dumped her? Although Tang Ruowei was a princess, she's a girl after all, and every girl liked drama and gossip. Oh, that's because I killed her mother. Bai Qiran replied unchanged. So she hates me for granted. What? Tang Ruowei and Zui Yanfei looked at him blankly. 2,000 years ago, the human race at that time had finally gained the upper hand in the battle with the devils and drove or slaughtered the remaining devils in the 9 provinces. At this time, the demon emperor thought this was a good opportunity, so he gathered an army and invaded the 9 provinces. Su Xiangxue sighed and added to Bai Qiran. Leading by the 5 major sects of the Righteous Alliance and the 3 main sects of the Evil Alliance, the human race gathered the power of countless cultivators and fought for a long time before they beat the demon back again. At the end of the war, the crown prince of the demon race, in order to obtain military food, carried out an inhuman massacre of the mortals of Lin province at that time, which lasted 10 days and 10 nights. The history called that incident, Lin Province 10 Massacre. Later the demon race surrendered completely. In the process of withdrawing troops, a man chased them into the demon world and killed the demon race's crown prince and the strategist who advised him, as well as all accompanying sergeants. This person is. Tang Ruowei and Zui Yanfei glanced at Bai Qiran. Humph. Bai Qiran smiled proudly, pointing his thumb at his face. Yes, it's me, Bai Qiran. It's hard to believe. Tang Ruowei turned her head and said. The strategist who made suggestions for the demon prince at that time was a demon transformed from a vine, who's bloodthirsty, and slaughtered a large number of humans. Her name is Cui Mu. She is Cui Luo's mother. Su Xiangshue's eyelids drooped slightly. Of course, as a mother, she is very good with Cui Luo, otherwise Cui Luo will not hate Bai Qiu so much, for 2,000 years. So what about this demon Cui Luo? Tang Ruowei asked. She isn't like her mother who murders as a hobby, but in case someone provokes her. Bai Qiran said. You have also seen that the result of the sect leader and disciples of moon-worshipping sect. What? Tang Ruowei froze. Then why do you still spare this kind of demon? Didn't you teach me burn evil ones till its roots? It's difficult to explain to you in words. Bai Qiran lowered his head and thought for a moment, then said to Tang Ruowei. Wait a second. His figure suddenly disappeared in front of the 3 men. In the next moment he hurried back again along with Cui Luo, who was completely confused. Qingming Sword Patriarch. After a moment of confusion, Cui Luo exclaimed. Are you having second thoughts? I knew it. You human can't be trusted. I'm in the middle of a class, please cooperate. Bai Qiran pressed her shoulder, then suddenly made a left uppercut and hit Zulua's face. Next, he beat her brutally with a rapid fist cuff, and then he picked up Cui Luo and condensed his vitality to heal the bruise on the demon's face. Look. Bai Qiran pointed to Cui Luo, who was beaten up, and said to Tang Ruowei. That's why I let her go. I seem to understand. Tang Ruowei nodded. But I also know the reason why you have been single for 3,000 years. Qingming Sword Patriarch. The next moment, Kuo Luo reacted, screamed, and flung over. Today I'll do anything to kill you. Alas, Cui Luo, calm down. Su Xiangxue quickly stopped her. If you want to take revenge, you should escort Princess Bai Ling back to the demon world first. That's it. Bai Qiran waved his hands disdainfully. This Bai Qiran always keeps his words. If I say I'll spare you this time, then you'll be alive this time. Run away quickly. Su Xiangxue had to spend a long time calm Cui Luo down and persuade her to go back to the foxes. After returning, the head of the Kama Sutra sect said to Bai Qiran very resentfully. You're really a troublemaker. Hey, I did it just because you were here. Bai Qiran shamelessly waved his hand. If you meet a handsome man in the future and it is not easy to drain his male essence, you can also tell me. I will help you to look out. Bai Qiran took the other 3 people back to the nearby town. Of course, along the way he made Su Xiangxue angry many times. At this time, the leader of the Kama Sutra sect would not be polite. She hit him with the jade instrument. Arriving in the city, Bai Qiran temporarily left Zui Yinfei and Tang Ruowei in the pleasure realm of Su Xiangxue, while he went to the mountain where the moon worshipper sect located. Because the business atmosphere of the Kama Sutra sect obviously discomforted the 2 girls, Su Xiangxue took them to the backyard of the pleasure realm. A secluded courtyard was built for her to stay temporarily, or for elders to discuss major issues. You shouldn't think that he let Cui Luo carelessly. He is an old man. When people live for too long, they tend to become childish. Seeing that Bai Qiran was gone, Su Xiangxue sat down to play music while talking. Cui Luo is one of the 4 envoys of the Demon Emperor. Her status in the demon world is very special. If she dies in the human world, it will inevitably start a war between human and demon. Master is so annoying. Why sect leader Su is still speaking to him? Tang Ruowei stared at Su Xiangxue for a long time and suddenly asked. It can't be, sect leader Su, do you like my master? Buzz. Su Xiangxue's voice was chaotic and then she coughed. She covered her mouth and relieved herself and said to Tang Ruowei. Why did Miss Tang say this? I can hardly imagine a woman paying so much for a man without personal affection. Tang Ruowei said. I'm a girl. I know that women's thoughts and actions are more introverted, not to mention that you are still a demonic cultivator, yet you have walked in this way with a righteous cultivator like master. Have you never been under pressure? I don't believe it. Hearing her words, Zui Yinfei next to her lowered her head in low self-esteem and murmured. Why did boys say I was more outgoing than them? Su Xiangxue and Tang Ruowei ignored Zui Yinfei's self-talking, and after thinking about it, Su Xiangxue said to Tang Ruowei. Mr. Bai has great grace for me and of course I have to repay it. If he is not there, Su Xiangxue is just a free-to-use toilet for men, a furnace to gather male essence for my master. Now I can become the leader of the Kama Sutra sect because of Bai Qiran's support. Such a great kindness, Su Xiangxue will naturally try her best to repay. I have never learned that there is a demonic cultivator who repays kindness in the Qingming Sword Sect cultural course. Tang Ruowei shook her head. What's more, even if it's repaying your gratitude, you have done too much. It's like letting him ask for anything he wants. Alas, what does little girl Ruowei care so much about your master's emotional life? Su Xiangxue avoided answering. I am his disciple, so naturally I care about it. Tang Ruowei supported his chin and replied. You think, if he really marries someone in the future, then I will need to call that person master wife. It's my vital interest, sect master Su. Su Xiangxue and Tang Ruowei stared at each other for a few seconds, then suddenly laughed out loud together, and Zui Yinfei next to them looked stunned. I couldn't think of a day when I became speechless in front of a junior. Su Xiangxue laughed. I like him, but does it matter? Even if we have the strength to stand together under the pressure of the 2 sides, but he is obvious for love. Moreover, Ruowei, do you want me to be your master wife? This decision can't be made by me but my master. Tang Ruowei made suggestions to Su Xiangxue. But I think that if things are going on like this, Su sect master can only live alone for a lifetime. Oh? Is Ruowei girl trying to solve this predecessor's emotional problems? Su Xiangxue asked with a smile. So why are you talking about it? Because of your identity, you are a member of the Kama Sutra sect. Tang Ruowei said sharply. When it comes to the world's impression of the Kama Sutra sect, what do people think first? Slutty, seductive, and a ruthless demoness hid beneath the gorgeous appearance who can sit on the ground and suck, cough. In short, I think except those who have special hobbies, no man in the world is willing to marry a woman of the Kama Sutra sect as his wife. Besides that. A blush suddenly appeared on Tang Ruowei's face. Her eyes flickered and asked intermittently. Sect leader Su, have you ever collected male essence? Oh, after saying so much, she is still a young child. Su Xiangxue smiled proudly, then said. Then it depends on your definition of collect male essence? If it says to suck a man's ahem, then I have actually collected, but there has never been any intercourse. What? Tang Ruowei was shy in her heart, but couldn't help being curious about this topic. Zui Yanfei on the side also secretly raised her ears and overheard the conversation between the two. After a pause, Tang Ruowei continued to ask. How did the Su sect master absorb the male essence? After looking at Su Xiangxue's face, she waved again. If it's a forbidden secret, I don't want to listen to that kind of thing. It's not a secret. In fact, this method was also modified by your master. Su Xiangxue smiled and said. My phantom charm, among all exercises of the Kama Sutra sect, specializes in the charm effect. In fact, for ordinary men, I only need a word or a look to get their essence. Even if no one comes to the store, just go around in the street and I can get countless male essence. Reminiscent of Su Xiangxue's ability that Bai Qiran told her before, Tang Ruowei felt a little shocked. This was the scourge of the moving beauty. If she took off her veil and let the emperors of the three kingdoms of Tsang province see, it's enough to make the three kingdoms perish because of the war. One of the three big shots of the evil alliance, truly a terrifying character. Having settled down, Tang Ruowei encouraged Su to recognize the gap with them, and said to Su Xiangxue. So sect leader Su is still a virgin. Su Xiangxue thought about it and nodded. Then do my master know this? Tang Ruowei asked again. Su Xiangxue thought hesitantly and shook his head. I never mentioned it with him. That's right. Tang Ruowei clapped. That's why when my master was with you, he would say those words. He just treated you like his good brother. A good buddy went out to find women, another helped to look out. For a pair of male friends it's quite normal. Oh? Su Xiangxue thought for a while and asked angrily. You mean that guy has always treated me like a man? Yeah, think about it, when you and the master met, you should have already cultivated Kama Sutra sect's exercise, right? Later when you became the sect leader, you lived in pleasure realm. The first time my master took me to see you at that day, what he told to the disciples at the door was, call out the strongest of you here, and then the disciples brought him to you. He probably still thinks that you are doing Kama Sutra sect's part-time job in a chain store. Tang Ruowei guessed. He has a good relationship with you, but he doesn't want to develop in that area, so he can only treat you as a male brother. If you continue this way, I'm afraid you will be a best friend for a lifetime. Take this pill and cultivate for 2 months, your injuries will recover. Bai Qiran put a bottle of pill into the hand of the golden core old man. Thank you, senior, for your reward. The old man bowed deeply. So I will? Bai Qiran got up and wanted to go, but he saw the strange look on the faces of the disciples around him, so he asked. What? Do you have something to say? No. The old man hurriedly waved his hand. They're in pain, that's all. When he said this, it felt like he was deliberately satire Bai Qiran, and the old man sternly wished he could slap himself in regret. Qingming Sword Sect was a righteous sect, but in the cultivation world, the word righteous alone couldn't make a sect stand upright. Actually, I also know what you want to say. Bai Qiran sat down again, tilting his legs, and said. It's nothing but my luck that I was born in the Qingming Sword Sect and be accepted as an apprentice by the immortals, so I don't understand the hard work of you small sections. That's what you're thinking, right? He looked around, observed the expressions of the disciples of Moon Worshipper sect, and gave a sneer. Bullshit. At this moment, the disciples showed the expression of anger and daring, but Bai Qiran ignored them and continued to say. To tell the truth, I'm a disciple of Qingming Taoist, and I'm more than 3,000 years old this year. When Qingming Sword Sect was founded, my master was invincible in the cultivation world. My childhood is better than you, I have to admit this. But when my master founded Qingming Sword Sect, he was already in the great accession stage. It took him only 100 years to ascend, leaving only the delicate exercises, countless materials, vast territories, and our disciples who are good for nothing. After a pause, Baikiran's thoughts seemed to have returned to the past, and his eyes were a little lost. He continued. After Master's ascension, the strongest one in the sect was my eldest senior brother, who at that time was a mere mid-nascent soul stage. As for me, I could only fight an initial nascent soul stage cultivator if I risked my life. We're incompetent, yet we possessed the wealthiest patriarchal assets in the 9 provinces at that time. An innocent man is guilty of his wealth. Do you think that we were better than you then? After finishing this sentence, Baiqiran saw that the dissatisfied expression on the faces of the disciples. The betrayal of allies, the open attack of all parties, and the demonic cultivators who were suppressed by my master and did not dare to act rashly before his ascension. These people almost all placed their anger on the sect he founded. During the toughest days, we only had 20 to 30 disciples, and we were even forced to abandon the territory left by the founder. The sect wandered around in 9 provinces for 200 or 300 years. Baiqiran stood up and looked at the disciples of Moon Worshipper sect and said, "We still stand up in this situation, so I think that I who have experienced this situation are qualified to ask you, why can't you revitalize your sect again? But our situation is all because of you." Someone in the crowd whispered in a low voice. "Shut up." The old man said cursedly. "Who dares to talk back? Stand up for me." Baiqiran raised his hand to stop him, and his eyes accurately locked on the young man who spoke. "Do you think that the Moon Worshipper sect has fallen like this? Was it caused by me? Then I will tell you, if not because of me, you Moon Worshipper sect and several nearby sects, no one can survive." He looked at the young man and said, "The 3 disciples in your sect were killed by my disciple. That's because you attacked her first, and before you started she reminded you that I only passed her killing moves. Do you think that my disciple should stand on the spot and let you kill her? Your masters and elders and half of the disciples were devoured by the big demon, also because you want to put the blame on those fox demons, kill them to get their inner core and take control of the country. After all, this situation is the result of your sect leader's stupid plan." The disciple lowered his head and couldn't say a word. Upon seeing this, Baiqiran shook his head and said to the old man who was next to him, "I assume you will take over the leadership. Next time you apply to join the Righteous Alliance, you will definitely not be able to pass it, but if you try harder, after hundreds of years you may have a chance. I will give you a suggestion. Cultivating hard, pay more attention to the things of the cultivation world, and if you are not strong enough, don't think about these crooked things like manipulating an empire behind the scenes." "I'll keep that in mind." The golden core old man bowed his head deeply. I have had my say. You must do it for yourself." Baiqiran walked away. Baiqiran hurriedly ran back to the pleasure realm of the city near Dingjiang Mountain to pick up his apprentice and another disciple of the heavenly army from the Devil's Cave. As a result, when he got there, he witnessed Su Xiangxue was helping Zui Yanfei change her clothes. Zui Yanfei's armor was destroyed by 2 disciples of the Moon Worshipper sect in the previous battle. The clothes of the other disciples of the Kamasutra sect were too exposed for the girl, so Su Xiangxue asked Zui Yanfei to use her clothes, which happened to be close in height and size. 2 big-breast girls entered the room, while Tang Ruowei with a fake chest stood alone, looking at the door with longing. "If I took a photo of you just now with an image recording stone, I might be able to win the prize of the Jade Towers photography competition." Baiqiran walked to the disciple's side and teased her. "I've thought about the name, it's called Longing." "Master." Tang Ruowei ignored him but asked rather distressedly, "Why is this world so unfair? Why can't everyone born equal?" "Well, in fact, I think that Miss Su and Zui Yanfei's big rack make good sense." Baiqiran thought about it and replied, "Look, one of them has water spiritual root, the other has the bloodline of dragons that manipulates the wind and rain. They are all water attribute, and the ultimate embodiment of water in nature is the sea. It's the so-called all rivers run into the sea, the wide heart embraces all. A wide heart naturally comes up with a big chest, right? Then I am also Earth's spiritual root. Is the Earth's heart not worse than the sea?" Tang Ruowei asked dissatisfiedly. "No, the Earth should be loaded with virtue. Since it needs to carry objects, it must be flat." Bai Qiran replied. The so-called standing up without any desire is just unruly student. What do you kick me for? The two clashed for a while, and the door of the room was also pushed open. Su Xiangxue smiled and pushed Zui Yanfei, who was wearing a white dress, out of the room. The female of Heavenly Army put on a dress, and the graceful figure immediately showed amazing charm, but she still did not put down her high ponytail, so in addition to being beautiful, she still had a touch of heroism. Tang Ruowei bulged her mouth jealously, and Bai Qiran glanced back, then withdrew his gaze. How is it? Not bad? Su Xiangxue came to Bai Qiran and teased him. It's a beautiful child. Bai Qiran replied old-fashionedly. Humph. Su Xiangxue gave him a white look and asked. Your affairs are all done, so are you going back to Qingming Sword Sect? Yes. Bai Qiran nodded and replied. I'll take Ruowei out tomorrow to see if I can find something for her to do, and then go back to the mountain. I still didn't get any clues to break through the foundation this time. It seems that my chance has not arrived yet. If you really want to find opportunities, go to places like the wilderness or the siege. Su Xiangxue thought about it. By the way, speaking of it, I heard that the previous sect master of the Heavenly Demon Sect had successfully passed the tribulation in the wilderness and was about to return. What? Bai Qiran asked in surprise. He hasn't been slain by thunder? It's just luck, and he doesn't act like a demonic cultivator, Su Xiangxue said. He may become the first great elder in the evil alliance for 1,000 years. I can help you pay attention to it when the time comes. Well, it's up to you, thank you. Bai Qiran nodded politely. In addition, there is something for you. Su Xiangxue clapped his hands, and suddenly a disciple of the Hehuan sect walked in outside the courtyard. He was wearing proper clothes and captured the charm of his body. He held a wooden plate with some materials in his hands. These are the material of longevity pill. I think you might forget that you can still live for a few years when you go down the mountain. I am not as good as you at making a pill, so I will give you the materials. Bring it back and refine the pills yourself. Su Xiangxue rolled her eyes at Bai Qiran. Don't die before I succeed in passing my tribulation, fool. Hiss. Bai Qiran rubbed his arm. Why do you suddenly become so active? Brother, you won't make a move on me, will you? Among the evil alliance and even all the evil sects, Heavenly Demon Sect had the longest history. Its origin could even be traced back to the heyday before the Great Song calendar. Even in the era after the war between human and demon, this sect has continued its own inheritance. No matter how the other evil sects came and went, rose and fell, this sect has always been there for thousands of years. However, it's different from the Kama Sutra sect, who mixed into the mortal world and hid the headquarters in a mortal city, or Ghost Spirit sect who hid from the world and set up the headquarters on a mass grave. Heavenly Demon Sect was the only sect in the evil alliance that dared to expose the headquarters to the outside world and occupy a spiritual land. From the outside, the mountain area where the Heavenly Demon Sect was located was also beautiful and full of spiritual energy. If it's for not the big 3 words Heavenly Demon Sect on the mountain wall, the visitors may think that they were visiting a righteous sect's headquarters. A tall man stood for a moment in front of these 3 characters and then walked up the mountain road. He familiarly passed through all the defensive traps and formations and stepped into the gate of Heavenly Demon Sect. The disciples did their work as if they didn't see the man at all, and let him walk past him in such a leisurely manner. The man went all the way inwards, came outside the lecture hall in the Demon Sect and stood at the door. In the lecture hall, Ji Lingyun, the current leader of the Heavenly Demon Sect, a woman with a beautiful appearance but a rude behavior, was giving lectures to the disciples. Today we will have a culture class. Ji Lingyun sat on the bench made of bamboo with great care, ignoring the fact that her white legs stretched out of the black dress and exposed in front of her disciples. She took it lazily in one hand and scratched it around her waist, while in the other she took a bamboo stick and tapped it on the small blackboard hanging on the wall of the lecture hall, saying, As a cultivator, whether it is righteous or demonic, you must have a goal. With a goal, you will have the motivation to break through to the next level. So we will talk about dreams today. Devil Boy, you come first. The man who was called Devil Boy stood up. He was a pretty little boy with a fair complexion, just like a baby, with a bit of fierce color between his eyebrows. He had a cute and serious face, but he was the first disciple in this generation of the Demon Sect, the elder brothers of all the students present. Your honorable master. He stood up and said coldly in a murky voice. My family was wiped out by the so-called righteous sect, Moon River sect, for the sake of a spiritual plant. I have sworn that in the future I will slaughter the Moon River sect, kill everyone related to them, and cut off the sect master's head with my blade. Eldest brother's ideal is really good. As a demonic cultivator, he is very qualified. While the devil boy was talking, a pretty girl sitting 3 rows behind touched her chin and thought while staring at him. So much murderous intent, I like it. You are worthy to be the eldest brother of the heavenly demon sect. Ji Lingyun also looked satisfied, but she said, but the Moon River sect you mentioned has been investigated by the execution elders of the Righteous Alliance, their crimes were exposed, all the disciples were dismissed, the sect leader and all the related persons were beheaded, it's no longer your business. Next. The devil boy was pale and sat down, and on the other side, a woman with red hair stood up. Master. She patted her big breast and proudly said, I will become the sect leader in the future, leading the heavenly demon sect to become the lord of 9 provinces, and let the whole world submit to my prestige. Mwahaha. Before the words were finished, the woman laughed first in a devilish way. The second senior sister's ideal is far greater than the eldest brother. I didn't expect that she has such a big ideal, it is worthy of the second sister. The girl thought again. Well, Tain, your ideal is a bit higher than the devil boy, I like it. Ji Lingyun nodded, then said again. But your cultivation level is the lowest among fellow disciples from the same generation. If you don't work hard, even the youngest junior brother who has just started cultivate will surpass you soon. While dreaming, you still have to be down to earth and increase your cultivation level. Next. The red-haired girl sat down dejectedly, while on the other side, a teenager with a full face stood up. Master. He shouted loudly in a voice like a soldier. I don't have any special dreams. Nonsense. Ji Lingyun stared at him. Then talk about what you want to do most. What I want to do the most. Yin Chaji blushed for some reason, lowered his head and glanced quietly at the side of the lost master devil boy, and whispered. Speaking of this, it's a bit indecent. I have recently seen a great brother and I have a wonderful feeling. I want to get married with him. Wow, I never thought that the third senior brother who looked like a decent gentleman actually has this kind of fetish. No wonder he was never caught by us when we took a bath. But this idea is actually evil and twisted, at least in line with our image in the eyes of the world. I really think he's awesome. I can't never do that. The boring young girl thought again. Okay, you needn't say it. Ji Lingyun interrupted his words and pointed at the door indifferently. Go out and take off the clothes of the disciples. This Ji Lingyun does not have a student like you. The question and answer continued, made people cry and laugh, until Ji Lingyun finally asked the boring girl. When she saw the girl, her face became a lot softer. After all, this girl was a supreme genius who was blessed with the legendary unique physique of the demonic cultivator's heavenly demon body. Such a physique, Ji Lingyun has basically only been seen in the ancient records of the heavenly demon sect, and that was written before the war between human and devil. As a reappearance of this legendary physique, the girl also exhibited an amazing monster-like talent. In just more than 100 years after entering the sect, she was already at the pinnacle of the nascent soul stage. She was also a quick learner. The exercises of the 3 major evil sects, or even secret techniques left by the Blood God sect, she could master them all as soon as she learnt them, without having any side effect. In another 100 years, even Ji Lingyun herself was not sure that she could beat this disciple. The only regret was that she could not stay as long as a certain Qingming sword sect's white-haired old monster. In less than several hundreds of years she would meet her tribulation and ascend, so no one knew how long she could protect the demon sect. Jin Yao, come here and tell Master about your dreams. Li Jinyao stood up, and the all brothers and sisters around her all looked at this proud daughter of heavenly demon sect with eager eyes. She was a little nervous and took a deep breath. Finally, she was blushing and summoned the courage to say, Master, my dream is to find a good man in the future, stay at home with the kids and become a good wife. She's so cute. Looking at Li Jinyao with a slightly red face, everyone else including Ji Lingyun thought at the same time. Wrong? Ji Lingyun shook her head and said positively. Jinyao, as the chief disciple of heavenly demon sect, how can you have such a mediocre ideal? Master, demon cultivators must be honest with their own nature and don't need to take worldly ethics into account. The motto of evil sect was free to do as you like. Isn't this what you told me when I joined the sect? Li Jinyao asked back. Yes, I said that. Ji Lingyun's face was pale with anger. But how can your ideal be regarded as freedom? It can't be helped, since I read the romance novel brought by the 8th junior sister, I really wanted to be a good wife and a good mother. Li Jinyao replied honestly, completely ignoring the screaming sister behind her. Ji Lingyun cast an eye on her 8th disciple, I'll settle the bill with you later, and then followed the path of temptation. Jinyao, there is no good man in the world. You will regret it in the future. Master can't agree with this idea. Oh well. Li Jinyao blinked and said very barely. Then I will wait for hundreds of years anyway. After that time, you will be no match for me. Jinyao, you. Ji Lingyun's fingers were shaking. She wanted to scold you traitor, but when it came to her mouth she was reluctant. Although Li Jinyao said quite rudely it was the truth. According to Ji Lingyun's own estimate, perhaps 200 or 300 years later she would be no match for this disciple. Haha, excellent, the disciples of this generation are really interesting. When the atmosphere was awkward and heavy, there was a burst of bold laughter at the door. Who is it? I didn't notice when he came so close. Ji Lingyun was shocked and turned her head. She was so scared that her eyes were almost popped out. Master? Wearing a fur robe, a dark-haired man with a long blade at his waist gave a shiny smile to her, and said with a thumb up. Yo, little Lingyun, I'm back after successfully surviving the tribulation. Damn, Huangfu Feng really succeeded in passing the tribulation. In the Qingming Sword Sect's hall, Zhu Yunzi stuffed a letter of paper back into the unwrapped envelope and looked up at other elders. His face looked like he had eaten shit. This time, the status of the heavenly demon sect in the evil alliance will rise again. The second elder sighed. After more than 3,000 years of the Great Song calendar, the first great ascension demonic cultivator has appeared. I haven't heard of a demonic cultivator's ascension before. Will they also ascend to the immortal realm? This isn't the time to worry about that. With Huangfu Feng's character, he is now full of vigor, and he must definitely go to righteous sects to show off. Zhu Yunzi looked around. You say which righteous sect is most likely to be the first one he visited? The elders glanced at each other, and the third elder stood up and whispered. I'm going to reinforce the mountain formation. As soon as he walked out of the door, the Qingming mountain trembled, and then a burst of heroic laughter spread from the mountain gate. Huangfu Feng has come. Where is the old bastard Zhu Feng? Okay. The third elders looked back at his brothers and sisters and walked back. It seems that reinforce the mountain formation is unnecessary now. Damn, it's really speak of the devil. Zhu Yunzi whispered in a low voice and then looked up and said, Go and invite the heavenly demon sect's great elder to the main hall. After a while, a man in a fur robe was invited into the main hall of Qingming Sword Sect respectfully and alertly by a disciple of Qingming Sword Sect. As soon as he entered the hall, Zhu Yunzi greeted the man. Yo, I haven't seen you for a long time, Senior Huangfu. Did you go to the wilderness to pass the tribulation? Why didn't the thunder fry you to death? It's really illogical. Although Zhu Yunzi's words sounded very controversial, in fact, it's not unreasonable. The strength of heaven tribulation might vary, but doing more good deeds could increase the probability of having a weaker tribulation, so there were so many cultivators who claimed to be righteous usually helped the local public security. In addition to their belief, the pressure of heaven tribulation was also one of the main reasons for the cultivators to do good deeds. Demonic cultivators were different, they would do whatever they want. Because of the exercises, they have always acted without care. Naturally, they did less good things and more evil things, thus they had a greater probability of encountering a fierce tribulation. Almost 90% of demonic cultivators met the most terrible tribulation. At that time, thunder from heaven, fire from earth, and inner demons from the heart assaulted them at once, as if God was determined to kill them. Zhu Yunzi once heard Bai Qiran say that when Qingming Taoist was still there, and Bai Qiran had just entered his never-ending qi refining, Qingming Taoist had an archenemy in the Blood God sect, a heavenly tribulating stage just like him. Qingming Taoist's way to deal with him was to suppress his own cultivation level. Because of the lack of mental training, in terms of suppressing oneself, demonic cultivators were generally weaker than that of the righteous cultivator of the same level. For them, suppressing themselves was equivalent to suppress the most primitive desire of human beings, which couldn't be suppressed at all. Soon after, the heavenly tribulation came, the Blood God sect elder prepared to slaughter a country to absorb blood and resist the heavenly tribulation. Qingming Taoists saw this opportunity and went up. They fought in the capital city of the country for a day before the Blood God sect elder's heavenly tribulation came. Hundreds of miles were enveloped in the blood-red thunder cloud, and the Blood God sect elder had to fight against the heavenly tribulation and the Qingming Taoist at the same time. Naturally, his body and soul were completely destroyed. However, according to Bai Qiuran, even if Qingming Taoist didn't do anything that day, the Blood God sect elder would be killed under the thunder. The only difference was people of a whole country would be dragged to hell along with him. Oh, I haven't seen you in a while, but your mouth is still so annoying. No wonder little Lingyun still hates you so much. Huang Fufeng said to Zhu Yunzi indifferently. With such a stinky mouth, you should be careful or you'll be killed when you go out. Ha, are you the one who needs to be careful? Zhu Yunzi also sneered. You should look around, this is the main hall of Qingming Sword Sect. Even if you are the elder of a major evil sect, believe it or not, we 7 brothers and sisters will join forces in order to kill you? Oh, I'm a little bit interested. How much have you improved over the years? Huang Fufeng eagerly touched the blade's handle, but after thinking about it, he loosened it again. But never mind, I came here to find Zhu Feng. Where is he? You didn't come at the right time. The great elder is still in the closed-door cultivation to prepare for his heavenly tribulation. Zhu Yunzi leaned on Erlang and replied. So you should go back and wait another 10 or 20 years before you come again. Bye-bye. Haha, so he hasn't succeeded in passing the tribulation yet, right? There was a smile on Huang Fufeng's face. This time I won and I'm going to have a drink to celebrate. Yeah, you won. Zhu Yunzi waved his hand impatiently. The Qingming Sword Sect has no drink for a demonic cultivator. Please leave. Well, I'll talk about drinking later. Huang Fufeng did not go out but asked with a smile. Since Zhu Feng is retreating, what about Qingming Sword Patriarch? I heard little girl Su says that he has recently been busy? Oh, I get it. Zhu Yunzi looked at Huang Fufeng with strange eyes. I thought you came to pick a fight but I didn't expect to come to ask for being beaten. Well, since you like being beaten so much, I have no reason to not fulfill your wish. Uncle Ancestor is at 7 Stars Peak now. Go find him there. Tang Ruowei took out her jade and let the 2 guarding disciples verify it, and then walked into the mountain gate. She went to the branch office to complete the second quest, then went straight to the highest main hall. Halfway through, she saw a vision appeared in heaven and earth. A shadow of a demon god suddenly appeared under the swirling thunder cloud. It had 3 heads and 6 arms, with 2 horns on each head, and each hand held a blade. It roared loudly, and its unmatched power sent shock and tremor to the entire Qingming Sword Sect. Tang Ruowei was shocked a bit too, but when she noticed that the place where the shadow demon appeared was the 7 Stars Peak, the girl recovered her calm. Sure enough, in the next moment, a sword beam rushed to the sky and split the demon god shadow from top to toe. Tang Ruowei even barely heard that someone was screaming. Upon seeing this, she withdrew her gaze and continued going upward, all the way to the office of Zhu Yunzi. Ouch, Senior Uncle Ruowei is back. Zhu Yunzi was seriously handling official duties, which was a rare scene. When Tang Ruowei came, he put down his pen and smiles. Sect leader, Tang Ruowei is back. Facing the sect leader, Tang Ruowei certainly would not be arrogant and impolite. She still followed the etiquette and bowed to Zhu Yunzi slightly. Senior Uncle Ruowei has worked hard, and it seems that your cultivation has improved again. Zhu Yunzi looked up and down Tang Ruowei and nodded. I think you will break through another stage soon. I want to keep up with Master's footsteps, I'm still far away. Tang Ruowei sighed. No need to hurry, no one is close to him. Zhu Yunzi smiled and waved his hand, then asked. What about the mapping data I want? It's here. Tang Ruowei took out a scroll tied with brocade from her arms. Fortunately, I've done on time. Zhu Yunzi took the scroll and looked at it, then nodded. Senior Uncle, you did very well. Judging from the data of this survey, the few small sects are indeed secretly doing something behind our backs. This is the energy cycle of the formation. Thank you very much. The leader's words are too serious. I am also a disciple of Qingming Sword Sect. Tang Ruowei replied with a smile. After traveling back to the mountain for the first time, perhaps she was stimulated by Su Xiangxue and Zui Yanfei, or maybe she felt that she must not take life whenever she fought. In addition to what Bai Qiuran taught, Tang Ruowei began to independently learn other subjects. As a princess, Tang Ruowei has her own pride, and she also had the desire to be useful for Bai Qiuran and Qingming Sword Sect, but she also knew that catching up with Bai Qiuran in cultivation was almost impossible, and regardless of her talents, at least there was a time gap of 3,000 years between her and Bai Qiuran. So the girl began to look for other places where she could play a role, and this kind of surveying work was one of the things she found. The so-called surveying and mapping were to measure the data and draw and record it. All things that could be described by data can theoretically be mapped, whether it was the power, accuracy, energy frequency of various aspects, or the formation's energy trajectory, the energy intensity of refining, all of which could be recorded, restored, and studied by mapping. In terms of knowledge about formation, sword technique, and refining, Tang Ruowei knew that Bai Qiran was much better than her, but even if Bai Qiran wanted to do this, the Qingming sect didn't dare to bother him to help them do such small things. After a period of study, she was now quite good and could do some secret surveying and mapping tasks for Zhu Yunzi. "Senior uncle, you may go back and have a rest." Zhu Yunzi put the surveying scroll in a drawer and said to Tang Ruowei, "Uncle Ancestor is now on 7 Stars Peak." "Okay." Tang Ruowei nodded, walked to the door, but suddenly stopped and asked, "Speaking of it, when I just went up the mountain, I saw a demon shadow above the 7 Stars Peak. Who is fighting against Master?" "Oh, that, senior uncle, you don't have to care," Zhu Yunzi inadvertently said. A demonic cultivator with a mental problem came to the door to ask for beatings. Uncle Ancestor can handle him without any problem. Your sword skill has improved. Bai Qiran threw away half of the wooden sticks in his hand and looked at Huang Fufeng, who was lying in the giant pit and staring at the sky. Huang Fufeng's expression was like someone who just returned from death. The great elder of the heavenly demon sect looked like a monk at the moment. Looking at the sky for a long time, he asked, "Sword Patriarch, although this is not the first time this topic has been mentioned, I still want to ask, are you still a qi refining stage cultivation? Isn't it that you opened up a new cultivation path?" "Nonsense," Bai Qiran said lightly. "If that's the case, I should have gone through the heavenly tribulation. I have lived so long but haven't seen any thunder try to strike me. It can be seen that even heaven thinks that I am just a qi refining stage cultivation. Besides, instead of thinking about me, you should think of yourself. After the historical dysfunction and the implementation of the Great Song calendar, you may be the first demonic cultivator to survive the heavenly tribulation." "Haha, that means I'm lucky." Huang Fufeng laughed. "Even heaven doesn't want to take me away. No, it's because you did less wrong things, so you luckily encounter a less intense heavenly tribulation," Bai Qiran said lightly. "If you really did many evil things, even if heaven can't kill you, I will also kill you myself." "Okay." Huang Fufeng sat up from the pit, feeling the lingering feeling of his still paining body. "I believe this. I have a question." Bai Qiran paused and asked, "Have you ever thought about where you will go after the Great Ascension stage? The historical data does not seem to have any records of a demonic cultivator ascended to the immortal realm." By the way, when it comes to this, Su Xiangshu especially asked me to tell you something. In fact, this time when I went to the wilderness, I found some secrets buried in the wilderness." Huang Fufeng got up and said, "I owe her a favor, so I will pay back by telling you this. I think this secret may be helpful for you to break through the foundation establishment stage." "Oh? What secret?" Hearing of breaking through the foundation establishment stage, Bai Qiran asked quickly. "I went to the Broken Soul River in the wilderness this time. When I resisted the heaven tribulation, the aftermath of the collision between me and the thunderbolt opened a pit on the Broken Soul River by chance." Huang Fufeng took out a scroll from his arms. "I can't understand the inscription on the tablet, but I have copied it." Tang Ruowei walked along the mountain road to the top of 7 Stars Peak and saw that the mountain of 7 Stars Peak had fallen by more than half. A man wearing a fur robe, who she had never seen in the sect, was standing next to her master. The two turned their backs to her as if looking at something. "Master!" Tang Ruowei shouted to Bai Qiran. "Well, oh, you are back, Ruowei?" Bai Qiran looked up at her, then turned his head back. "Who is this?" Tang Ruowei tilted her head and looked at the man in fur robes, asking tentatively. "Heavenly Demon Sect's previous leader, the current Great Elder, Huang Fufeng." Bai Qiran answered and also pointed out that Tang Ruowei and introduced. "This tomboy is the apprentice I just took." "Oh, is this the legendary Iron Tree Blooms?" Huang Fufeng said to Tang Ruowei in surprise. "Good luck, little girl." Heavenly Demon Sect. Tang Ruowei looked at Bai Qiran speechlessly. Let alone Sect Master Su, now the great elder of the Heavenly Demon Sect. "Master, as a righteous cultivator, are you too close to the demonic cultivators?" "We're not close. I know what to do." Bai Qiran held his chin and answered without looking back. "What are you looking at?" Tang Ruowei glanced curiously, saw the Tuo inscription on the scroll in Huangfu's hand, and was surprised. Isn't this the text of the last era? What? This time Bai Qiran was surprised. You know? When did you learn it? Guess. Tang Ruowei rolled her eyes. Then this teacher will test you. Bai Qiran took the scroll and displayed it in front of Tang Ruowei. What did the text on this scroll say? I can only see a noun for now. Tang Ruowei narrowed his eyes for a long time, then pointed to a place on the scroll and said, "This is called Immortal of the Land, or simply Land Immortal, for short. I need to go over ancient books and proofread. The texts of the last era are very mysterious. With a more ancient heritage, some texts can even be directly used as a rune. I haven't studied it for long and my skills are still shallow." Well, it's okay. Bai Qiran nodded and said, "For ordinary cultivators, this inscription is simply a confusing thing. The grammar written on it is very jerky and I can only read one sentence. Land Immortal Zhang Lai of the Zuain Mountain was executed. It should be like this." So what did the senior think of the word Land Immortal? Huang Fufeng asked. I thought of something that was not so good. Land Immortal, as the name suggests, means the immortal living on land. Bai Qiran looked up at the sky. Historical materials have never recorded that the demon cultivator soared into an immortal. Maybe, the ultimate form of your demonic cultivator is this Land Immortal. But why hasn't the Devil's Sex Classics ever recorded such existence? Huang Fufeng's face was grim. It always feels strange. Doesn't it say, was executed here? Maybe there are more powerful forces that were hunting Land Immortal. Bai Qiran patted Huang Fufeng's shoulder and said, "Maybe there was a genocide." "Master," Tang Ruowei suggested, "would you like me to take this scroll to the elders now, check the classics and translate all the contents on this scroll?" "This is not mine." Bai Qiran looked at Huang Fufeng, who nodded. "It's okay, but after translation, please give me a copy." "You heard him. Go." Bai Qiran touched Tang Ruowei's head and put the scroll in her hand. "I stay here to have a chat with Elder Huang Fufeng." Tang Ruowei hurriedly took the scroll to the library and asked the fourth elder to translate, while Bai Qiran took Huang Fufeng back to his own courtyard, and then brought 2 bottles of wine from his cellar, placed in front of Huang Fufeng. "Haha, Sword Patriarch knows best what this Huang Fufeng wants." Huang Fufeng drooled, ripped open the red seal of a jar of fairy wine, and stretched his nose to smell the wine. Why doesn't the smell of this jar feel like aged wine? Of course it didn't. All the aged wine has been consumed by me. Appreciate what you have. Don't be so choosy, or I'll cut off your head and drink from your skull. Bai Qiran's eyes flickered, and he seemed to return to the day when Tang Ruowei broke through the foundation establishment stage, and he sighed. I hope your discovery really helps me build the foundation. Sword Patriarch, you sound more like a demonic cultivator than mean. Huang Fufeng touched his head, hesitating for a while, but still lifted the wine jar and took a sip. So strong. So fragrant. Putting down the wine jar, he sighed contentedly. When I came back, Su Xiangxue also offered me to drink the one-night stand wine of the Kama Sutra sect. It tasted good, but unfortunately the taste was too soft and not suitable for me. I'm afraid you will only have a blade and wine in your life, Bai Qiran said while drinking. Wrong, I may give up the blade, but I can't lose wine. This wine is my lifeblood and I don't even want to drink any water except it. Huang Fufeng pointed at Bai Qiran and smiled. But I have to testify that I don't only have a blade and wine in my life. Senior, you guessed wrong, I once had a marriage. Although my wife is gone, I am not a forever alone. I have descendants. Puff. Bai Qiran sprayed the liquor in the mouth, then wiped his mouth. His face was hardened as iron. Damn. Senior, haven't you thought about falling in love with someone? Huang Fufeng laughed and said. For more than 3,000 years, it has been proven that you won't die all of a sudden. It's better to try to enjoy life. I know a store in Gu province, their reputation is very good. You are pretty. Bai Qiran looked up at him. You are talking about the pleasure realm. It seems that your heavenly demon disciples are frequenters of the Kama Sutra sect. Oh, I almost forgot that you have a great relationship with sect leader Su. Huang Fufeng scratched his head. But let me say, why don't you try to hook up Youth Su sect master? She is the best woman of the Kama Sutra sect. I have a phobia of the Kama Sutra sect, Bai Qiran indifferently said. Besides, I am also a normal man, I don't have cuckold fetish. Actually, I think you judge others too much from your own point of view. Huang Fufeng persuaded. Maybe Su Xiangxue is totally different from what you think in terms of your guess. Ah, you're talking a lot today. Bai Qiran looked at Huang Fufeng and wondered. Let me guess, what benefit did Su Xiangxue give you? Huang Fu's face was stagnant, and then he laughed and said. You see through me look like I really am not suitable for lying. Although the one-night stand wine does not meet my taste, it is also the best wine in the world. Those big jars have been enough for me to drink for a long time. After Huang Fufeng revealed the truth, he was sent away by Bai Qiran to the gate of Qingming Sword Sect. But the great elder of the Heavenly Demon Sect was also a stunning figure. After being sent off by the Qingming Sword Sect, Ye immediately ran towards the Heavenly Army. From the news came 3 days later, Huang Fufeng has challenged all the 5 major gates of Righteous Alliance except Jade Tower. Unsurprisingly, in the case the great elders of those sects did not take action, the sect leaders of all sects were defeated in his hands. For a while, the Heavenly Demon Sect was very popular, but people soon discovered the Qingming Sword Sect leader, Zhu Yunzi, was still alive and kicking, so the reputation of Qingming Sword Sect increased again. However, as the center of the whirlpool of this major event, Huang Fufeng himself had no thought about it, and Bai Qiran speculated that, with his character, he was only on a whim, looking for people to compete everywhere. The reason why he did not go to Jade Tower was that Huang Fufeng and Jade Tower sect did not look at each other well. As two opposing factions in the cultivation world, the relationship between the sects in the Righteous Alliance and the Evil Alliance was actually very complicated. Except for the Blood God sect who pleased no one and has long become history, all the other sects had a good relationship of at least one sect in the opposite faction. Like Qingming Sword Sect, because of the relationship between Bai Qiran and Su Xiangxue, their relationship with Kamasutra sect was ambiguous. Disciples of the two would not be hostile to each other unless necessary. Their relationship with Heavenly Demon Sect was more complicated because both Bai Qiran and Great Elder Zhu Feng appreciated Huang Fufeng's straight style of action, but the relationship between Zhu Yunzi and Ji Lingyun, two current sect leaders, was a mix between love and hate. Thus the relationship between Heavenly Demon Sect and Qingming Sword Sect disciples was unclear. The style of Ghost Spirit Sect was too weird and mysterious. The elders of Qingming Sword Sect were not very fond of it. Only Bai Qiran had contacted with the seniors of this sect. The relationship between the two groups of disciples was much more alienated, but Ghost Spirit Sect has a close relationship with Jade Tower, and the two sects often traded goods. Among the two major factions, Saint Buddha Sect and Kamasutra Sect were the best at diplomacy, because of the gentle character of the leader of the Saint Buddha Sect, Jade Face Buddha, and the generosity and slyness of Su Xiangxue. Whether it's with allies, the opposite faction, or the mortal and other small sects, they had a good relationship. But the relationship between these two could only be described as cold. The disciples of Saint Buddha Sect were devoted to the Buddha and had a clear heart, and they were the backbone of the anti-prostitution brigades of the Righteous Alliance. The disciples of the Kamasutra Sect. Well, you knew. Thus the two were in a natural opposition. Therefore, the relationship between the sects was not simply black and white but very complicated. In the early years, the two factions were indeed mortal enemies who could not live together. They engaged in war all year round, but now, the relationship between the Righteous Alliance and the Evil Alliance has developed into a very delicate and balanced relationship. The two factions seem to be hostile, but when facing foreign enemies such as the Demon Clan and the Devils, they would temporarily unite again. After the return of Huang Fufeng, the scroll of the inscription was also translated in an orderly manner by the fourth elders, Fu Yunzi. Because of Bai Qiran's instructions, Fu Yunzi was tried his best, and it took almost a week to translate the long inscription. The content of the inscription was as follows. In the autumn of year 43-135 in Green Sky calendar, the land immortal Zhang Lai started a war and led 3,000 cultivators, 50,000 soldiers and 300,000 mortals. They entrenched in the Zuain mountain and Zhang Lai called himself King of Destruction. By Holy Green Emperor's orders, generals Wuxia led 30,000 soldiers to stop the rebel. In the spring of year 43-138 in Green Sky calendar, land immortal Zhang Lai of the Zuain mountain was executed. The Holy Green Emperor Wuxia appreciated generals Wuxia's achievement, so His Majesty specially set up this monument on Zuain mountain to describing his affairs, remembering his name, expressing his merits and demonstrating his deeds. The future generations must look up to generals Wuxia's talent and remember His Majesty's grace. This is a merit tablet. After reading Bai Qiran he was surprised. It should be. Tang Ruowei handed over a scroll. There is still a section here, which is crooked. It should be engraved on this inscription later. Bai Qiran took a look and only one sentence was written on it. Don't kill the Green Emperor, people will suffer. It seems that this emperor's reputation is not very good. Tang Ruowei and Bai Qiran looked at the content on the scroll together and shook their heads. It's hard to say, individual perception may vary. We have not experienced that era, and the judgment of a person at that time cannot be so arbitrary. Bai Qiran shook his head. But we at least know what the state of 9 provinces was before the war between human and devil. It should be a unified and stable dynasty just like the current demon clan. But we still don't know what land immortal is and how people will become land immortal. Tang Ruowei said regrettably. There are other clues that the monument is next to the wild Broken Soul River, so other places on both sides of the Broken Soul River may also have the remains of the previous era. Bai Qiran pondered for a moment. Tell Zhu Yunzi that I am going to find Huangfu Feng. Master, are you going down the mountain? Yes. Bai Qiran patted her head. This may be a clue to finding my breakthrough opportunity. Okay. Tang Ruowei looked reluctant but still said. Have a safe journey. She understood the gap between herself and Bai Qiran. In the journey to the wilderness she was not able to help him anything, instead could hold him back. The most sensible approach was studying hard and improving herself during this time, so she could help in the future. When Bai Qiran found Huangfu Feng, the latter was drinking wine with a friend from Qing province, which was adjacent to Gu province. His friend was someone Bai Qiran also knew, the leader of the Skyforging Castle, Yu Qianlian. His grandfather was the one who had taught Bai Qiran the refining method, so Bai Qiran had a close personal relationship with him. They once had a gamble, and Bai Qiran won an unlimited supply of fine iron swords for 300 years from him. Huangfu Feng's association with him started with Yu Qianlian's eldest brother, Yu Qianren. This person was supposed to be the one who inherited the sect leader's position. However, he wasn't interested in forging a weapon, instead was more attentive in using the weapon. His accomplishments in this aspect were high, especially in the blademanship, which was why he and Huangfu Feng became friends. As far as the world was concerned, Skyforging Castle was a superclass sect that belonged to the Righteous Alliance, and its strength was second only to the 5 major sects, but this sect was actually receiving all kinds of work, including orders from evil sections. For example, Huangfu Feng's god-slaying blade was from the hands of Yu Qianlian. The reason why Skyforging Castle dared to be so arrogant was also inseparable from the strength of his elder brother Yu Qiandao. Of course, they dared not provide weapons to those who really did evil deeds. After all, there was a terrible execution elder in the Righteous Alliance. From the smell, Bai Qiran could tell that the two were drinking the one-night stand wine of the Kamasutra sect. At this time, Yu Qianlian had lost his mind and was lying on the stone to talk nonsense, but Huangfu Feng's face was only slightly red, and he was still sitting and drinking wine. Seeing Bai Qiran coming, he greeted and then asked. Sword Patriarch, is the inscription translated? Look for yourself. Bai Qiran threw the scroll in his hand to Huangfu Feng. Huangfu Feng took a look at it again. He was not a stupid person. He quickly figured out the key and changed his face slightly. This? He put away the scroll and looked at Bai Qiran. Do Sword Patriarch need me to lead the way? Right on my mind. Bai Qiran nodded and said. Let's go to the wilderness. In the vast land of the world, the human race occupied the most extensive piece of land. Based on some geographical characteristics, they divided this fertile land into 9 provinces and 10 lands. Even the smallest area was thousands of miles vast. On the west and east of 9 provinces and 10 lands, however, each had a piece of land on par with 9 provinces and 10 lands. On the east was the demon world, which was in a different space from the 9 provinces and 10 lands. In fact, many years ago, the first demon emperor cut a piece of land from the original land of 9 provinces and 10 lands with great power and transferred it into a different space. Although it was not adjacent to 9 provinces and 10 lands, it also cut off the road from 9 provinces and 10 lands to the east. If cultivators of 9 provinces and 10 lands wanted to explore the sea in the extreme east, and they could only pass by from the north and south. On the west was the land which the human race called the wilderness. This area was vast and there were many dangers and mysteries. More importantly, this land was where the devils, who were the natural enemy of the human race, came from. Since the end of the last era, the devils have retreated, the innocents have not given up exploring the wilderness, but the mystery was that the demon tribes appeared out of thin air, and also disappeared into the void. No one could find them even in the wilderness. But for thousands of years, the human race has never given up on the prevention of this area. Both the righteous and the evil factions built their defensive lines on the western soil bordering the wilderness. Everyone in the cultivation world firmly believed that those devils must lurk somewhere in the depths of the wilderness, waiting for one day to come back. And even if there was no devil, this land was also dangerous. Every year, crazy wild beasts rushed out of the wilderness and caused serious damage in the western soil. Bai Qiran and Huang Fufeng rushed on the way at night. Although Bai Qiran was fast, Huang Fufeng's cultivation level was among the top in the world, so he could barely keep up with his speed. The two spent a few days has crossed several provinces all the way from Gu province, crossed the western soil desert, and entered this crisis-ridden land. As soon as they entered the wilderness, the sky seemed to be dimmed, covered by a thin layer of black yarn. Although the light source of the sun could still be seen in the wilderness, the sun at noon was as dark as dusk. It's like entering the moment of the devil, the moment when the human and the alien bordered. The air was full of malicious and highly toxic air for human beings. If a low-level cultivator entered, he would slowly be corroded and become a dead bone from the inside out. Bai Qiran and Huang Fufeng used power to protect themselves, went deeper, and a terrible hissing sound soon rang ahead. A group of terrifying beasts come from the ground and fly from the sky. They were huge, even the smallest one has a size of more than 10 meters. The appearance was like a merging of many creatures that have existed in this world except human races. Looking at their bodies made people felt chilling and sickening. They smelled the scent diffused in the air, which was the taste of the human race, and rushed over, intended to tear Bai Qiran and Huang Fufeng into pieces, and swallowed into the belly. Bai Qiran launched a palm, and the unmatched chi turned into a sky-covered palm print, just like a giant wall, pressing toward the tide of beasts in the reverse direction. When the two forces collided, the beasts were crushed like bubbles, and the impact left a 100-mile-long rift on the ancient and mysterious land. Sword Patriarch's power has been improved again. Huang Fufeng couldn't help but praise. Bai Qiran glanced at him gloomily and said lightly, "I'm suppressing my advancement, and now I can only use 1/10 of my strength." Huang Fufeng froze for a moment, then smiled boldly. "Haha, it seems that as long as Sword Patriarch is in the world and people will never worry about finding an opponent." In the distance there was a wave of larger giant beasts. These wild beasts appeared from nowhere as if they were endless. Upon seeing this, Huang Fufeng touched his long blade and eagerly to try. "Sword Patriarch." He laughed. "Let's compete today." But Bai Qiran glanced at him like looking at a crazy and said lightly, "Fuck your compete, quickly lead the way to break the Soul River." Bai Qiran's impersonal answer did not affect Huang Fufeng's mood. The latter let out a scream, drawing his blade out of its sheath, and the blade beam was tens of thousands of miles, dividing the beast frenzy into several parts. Bai Qiran also took out a sword, and his chi swept through the battlefield. The two had no intention of evading, and slaughtered all the way against the tide of giant beasts in the wilderness, killing a blood road to the Broken Soul River. The Broken Soul River was located in the depths of the wilderness. It's a huge river with a width of thousands of miles. Even the cultivators couldn't see the other bank at a glance. According to Xuanfa Academy's speculate, this Broken Soul River should be from north to south, divided the wilderness into two halves, and its location was exactly the middle. Bai Qiran was the only one who had been in the other bank for 3,000 years. Other people who dared to take the risk, even if they were great ascension cultivators, never came back. No one knew that they couldn't return and died in the wilderness, or they were forced to ascend directly in the wilderness and escape to the immortal realm. Even Bai Qiran didn't go too far across. He only probed 500 miles inward along the river bank on the other side of the Broken Soul River. According to the results of his exploration, the air was more corrosive and the intensity of the beast wave was greater. Now Bai Qiran came to the Broken Soul River for the second time. He and Huang Fufeng both flew over the river. Because there was no foothold, Bai Qiran could only follow Huang Fufeng, standing on the spine of the god-slaying blade. Under Huang Fufeng's control, the blade was like a white fish, breaking through the air, flying quickly along the Broken Soul River towards the downstream. Bai Qiran looked down and saw the water flowing in the middle of the big river. Although there were countless aquatic giant beasts in the river constantly swallowing each other, from time to time some beasts jumped out of the water, trying to attack Bai Qiran and Huang Fufeng, but it's futile. The only thing that made Bai Qiran felt uncomfortable was his envy of Huang Fufeng's control of the flight. Ah, when will I be able to ride a flying sword in my life? Raising his hand to cut the body of a giant beast into two halves, he sighed for no reason. His survival instinct told Huang Fufeng to not answer the call but rushed to the ground honestly. After flying for another day along the river, Bai Qiran and Huang Fufeng finally came to the place where the inscription located. Looking from afar, in the bank of the Broken Soul River lied a tall stone monument, which was about a few hundred meters high. It's inscribed with ancient and mysterious words from the previous era. There was a faint blue light below the stone tablet. What? Huang Fufeng stopped the flight and looked at the stele with surprise. What happened? Bai Qiran asked. Sword Patriarch, the stone tablet was only a few meters high when I first saw it, and there was no light underneath. Huang Fufeng answered solemnly. It's growing up. Bai Qiran brought Huang Fufeng a little closer, and the latter drove the blade and carefully circled around the stone monument, which somehow rose to a height of hundreds of meters. The inscription hasn't changed, just enlarged according to what you said. Bai Qiran said after observation. Those characters engraved by later people have also been enlarged in proportion. Huang Fufeng formed a hand out of true qi and caught a strange fish with the head of a dog of more than 20 meters in length from the Broken Soul River. He threw it at the stele. The dog-headed fish monster slammed on the stone tablet, then slid down the stone tablet surface, fell to the ground and issued a groan. It struggled, swinging its tail, desperately tried to go back to the Broken Soul River, and after a minute of effort, it successfully entered the water, but a monster with a giant duck-like head quickly emerged from the water, swallowing it. Bai Qiran and Huang Fufeng looked at the stele, and the stele did not respond abnormally. It seems that nothing happens. Huang Fufeng whispered. It's actually amazing to be able to grow up on your own. Don't let your guard down. Bai Qiran said in a deep voice. Since it is what the so-called Land Immortal, or Holy Green Emperor, left in the last era, I am afraid it is not so simple. Sure enough, not long after the fall of Bai Qiran's words, the stone monument suddenly burst into blue light, and then from the text inscribed on the stone monument, a little blue light spot appeared, just like a firefly flying quickly towards the horizon. Where does it go? Huang Fufeng manipulated the blade to turn around, and the sword beam intercepted into a net. Bai Qiran also released his qi, forming a dome covering the entire area, but these blue light spots passed through the sword beam net and the sum like there was nothing there. It's not physical or energy. Bai Qiran immediately reacted and said to Huang Fufeng. Go over there. That is the direction of the 9 provinces. Huang Fufeng turned the broken sword into a huge white fish, stepped on it and then caught Bai Qiran. Sword Patriarch, let's chase. The two stepped on the white fish transformed from the god-slaying blade, but when they just about to catch up, the inscription on the stone tablet suddenly glowed, and then a body was drilled out of the stone tablet text. A blazing beast, like a giant crane with 3 heads, opened its mouth to bite the two. The strength of this 3-headed giant crane was comparable to that of the thunder beast that attacked the Qingming Mountain Gate. Huang Fufeng did not dare to underestimate it. He quickly transformed the white fish back to the blade and slashed toward the crane. However, he forgot that Bai Qiran, who had stood on it, suddenly had no foothold, and fell straight into the rolling waves of the Broken Soul River. In the water, countless aquatic wild beasts looked forward to the human flesh falling from the sky. But Bai Qiran turned over and patted the surface of the water. A giant palm formed from his qi hit the river, immediately caused multiple layers of water splashes on the surface of the Broken Soul River. Countless beasts were killed in the explosion. Bai Qiran himself used the palm force and the recoil of the river to pull it up again, and finally, he adjusted his direction and fell on the giant stone monument. After Bai Qiran landed on the stele, the 3-headed flaming crane that had been fighting with Huang Fufeng immediately turned his body and rushed in the direction of Bai Qiran, but Huang Fufeng also moved instantly, stopping in front of it. The man and the beast fought again, and the aftershock diffused everywhere. I leave the bird to you. Bai Qiran shouted at Huang Fufeng, then stretched his hand to buckle the stele. The palm of his hand was like the strongest mountaineering pick, as he firmly grasped the inside of the stele. Then he climbed down step by step like this. After reached the place the giant crane appeared, he took out the record stone in the storage bag and quickly recorded the images of the array from all angles, and then took out a blank spirit stone to intercept the trace of energy in the formation. On the other side, Huang Fufeng gave his fullest effort, and the heavenly demon phantom appeared once again behind him. The three-headed and six-armed demon raised two of his arms, and the two swords came out together. At once, the giant three-headed flaming crane was torn into pieces. Ha, just a mere bird. Before Huang Fufeng's laughter finishing, the flaming corpse pieces of the beast retracted immediately, like were gathered by an invisible force, to form the giant flaming crane again. It ignored Huang Fufeng but rushing in the direction of Baiqiran. Come on, you're the great elder of heavenly demon sect. Don't tell me you can't beat a beast summoned by a formation. Baiqiran said without looking back. Huang Fufeng had to stiffen with a smiley face, raise the blade and chased. He had been battling with the giant crane for a long time, killing it several times in the meantime. He was exhausted and panting, but every time the crane was defeated, the sparks would quickly recondense again. Even if Huang Fufeng shattered the crane's body into pieces, it was useless. All right. Just when Huang Fufeng felt that his consumption was a little overwhelming, Baiqiran's lazy voice came and said in time. I'm done, take it apart. I've been waiting for these words. Huang Fu withdrew a distance back, retracted the blade and sheathed back and immediately released a slash. The heavenly demon blade that slays gods and Buddha. The phantom roared and his 6 arms waved the sword in a frenzy. The unmatched sword beam formed a large net covering the world. The crane, the formation inscribed on the stone tablets, and the nearby riverbank hundreds of miles away, all were cut into scattered pieces by the blade of Huang Fufeng. The stone tablet shattered, and the formation above also dissipated, and the body of the giant flaming crane disappeared this time. Huang Fufeng and Baiqiran landed in the ruins of stone fragments. Still let those light spots run. Huang Fu's face looks a little ugly. Sword Patriarch, what is that? It's not clear, but I guess it might be some kind of visible signal. Baiqiran lowered his head and thought for a moment, saying, in short, let's go back first. Those blue light spots will inevitably cause some kind of change in 9 provinces. The blue light spot speed was extremely fast, and in a blink of an eye, it arrived at the 9 provinces from the depths of the wilderness. After entering the western soil, they scattered and traveled to various places in 9 provinces. Because the light of these light spots was extremely weak, ordinary people could hardly notice it. All the blue light spots came to their respective scheduled locations and fell to the ground. Among them, 70% of the blue light spots sank into the soil layer but caused no abnormality in the local area. The remaining 30% released a subtle blue light appears in the local strata, and then it quickly dimmed down again. However, there was a light spot. After sinking into the soil at the designated location, it successfully caused the aberration. After the blue light bloomed, the local land suddenly cracked, and in the rumbling sound, a majestic ancient city slowly rose from the ground. The first to notice the sudden appearance of the ancient city was the villagers who lived nearby, and the news spread it as they rushed to the market. The news spread quickly, so ordinary martial arts master who wanted to seek immortality were the first ones who came to the ancient city. Dispute ensued. After people met at the gate of the ancient city, they quickly fought out because of the struggle for interest. After a chaotic battle on one side, all parties threw down more or fewer bodies and had to leave the gate of the ancient city. There was a stalemate. Then came the local national army who received the news, and some cultivators of the nearby sect. After the emergence of these high-end military forces, the martial arts people were replaced. It became the confrontation between the national guardians and the sections. But in order to avoid the movement of the more powerful sect, even the direct intervention of the Righteous Alliance or the Evil Alliance, after some urgent consultations, both sides reached an agreement. Each party would send several cultivators to explore the ancient city together, and the achievements were divided in proportion. Several foundation-building national guardians and several foundation-building disciples from various sects, under the leadership of 2 golden core cultivators, were ready to explore this ancient city that suddenly appeared in this area and is obviously an extraordinary cultivation site. But as if knowing that someone was about to enter when the team was just formed, the gate of the ancient city opened on its own, exposing the dark space inside the gate. What happened? A golden core cultivator couldn't help but ask himself a question. He used a technique to enhance his eyesight to see what was in the door, but the darkness inside the ancient city seemed to be some kind of substance that could block his gaze. No one was able to answer his question. The golden core cultivator withdrew his gaze, paused, and then looked at the other golden core and tentatively suggested. Then we... Bing. At this moment, a heavy bell sounded suddenly in the ancient city. The sound waves visible to the naked eye penetrated the darkness from the center of the ancient city, transmitted out, and spread to all directions. After hearing the sound, the voice of the golden core cultivator who was talking came to an abrupt halt. Thousands of troops, martial art masters and cultivators nearby all froze in place. Bing. A moment later the second bell sound came and the people who had been stiff in place moved one after another, but their eyes had lost their spirit, and their movements were slow but uniform, just like a puppet controlled by invisible silk threads. I no longer have my own thinking. Kill? The golden core cultivator who was talking just now suddenly uttered a word. Kill the Green Emperor and recreate the sacred dynasty. Kill the Green Emperor and recreate the sacred dynasty. As if it were a chain reaction, as the words of this golden core cultivator fell, the slogan was slowly recited in other people's mouths. Kill the Green Emperor and recreate the sacred dynasty. Soon these people from different forces and different realms of strength all slowly moved up. They stood in a row in a shaky way, and walked into the ancient city from the ancient city gate, slowly disappeared into the darkness behind the gate. After the figure of the last person submerged in the darkness, the gate of the ancient city slowly closed again. Then, somehow there was a very thick fog and the whole ancient city was submerged in this thick fog. It slowly disappeared into the mist. Half a day later the dense fog dissipated, but there was no trace of the ancient city, as if its appearance was just a dream. Hello, sect leader. As soon as Yu Qianlian walked into the workshop of Skyforging Castle, many disciples stopped and saluted him, but other disciples still focused on their work and controlled the fire, dedicated to forge the semi-finished product in the furnace. Skyforging Castle had a rule: when the elders came to the workshop, if the disciples were working, then they didn't have to salute. The sect leader was included. Focus on your work and don't be influenced by foreign objects. Yu Qianlian said with a steady face. Look at the colleagues around you who didn't greet me. This Yu Qianlian doesn't care whether you say hello or not. In the workshop, compared with the courtesy, the quality of the magic weapon being formed is even more important. Sect leader, you're worthy of being the great master of the refining path. He has extraordinary temperament. That is, I heard people say that someone saw the sect leader drunk and took off his clothes and ran along the river bank. Now it seems to be a rumor. How could the sect leader do this kind of thing? When Yu Qianlian passed by, there were several disciples and Diantian Wu whispering with admiration. Routinely walking around the workshop, Yu Qianlian walked out of the workshop and was preparing to return to his study room to deal with official business, but a disciple came to him in a hurry and reported to him. Sect leader, something went wrong. The monarch of the Dongling Kingdom begged for help. Yesterday an ancient city appeared in the northwestern territory of the Dongling Kingdom. The monarch sent several guardians and thousands of troops to investigate. All of these people were missing. The ancient city is gone. Oh. Yu Qianlian's expression narrowed, and then he pulled the disciple aside and asked him. Clarify clearly, all the guardians and soldiers are missing? Yes. This disciple reported. Not only the guardians and troops of the Dongling Kingdom but also the cultivators sent by several local sects, as well as all civilians. As long as they were on the scene at that time, all disappeared along with the ancient city. Yu Qianlian lowered his head for a moment and then said, Go to Elder Lu and ask him to bring a group of disciples with a strong detective ability to the place where the incident occurred. Besides, send a letter to Righteous Alliance and report this to them. Yes. Originally, Skyforging Castle was unwilling to interfere with this kind of thing. The 9 provinces were vast, and there were many ruins left by the immortal and demon in various eras. Many people were buried on the way to explore these remains. However, Dongling Kingdom could be regarded as a country that was protected by Skyforging Castle. Among guardians of this kingdom, there were also several disciples from Skyforging Castle. So when the king personally asked for help, Yu Qianlian couldn't ignore it. Therefore, while reporting to the Righteous Alliance, Yu Qianlian also sent people to investigate. As a sect specialized in refining but not so outstanding in other respects, this was the wisest choice. But for an unknown reason in Yu Qianlian's heart, there was always an ominous feeling lingering. After returning to 9 provinces, Bai Qiuran and Huangfu Feng chose to separate to act. This was not the time to care about the dispute between righteous and evil, so he divided the images recorded on the stone tablets and the inscriptions, as well as the energy stored in the blank spirit stone so that Huangfu Feng would take one back to the evil alliance to study. Bai Qiran himself ran all the way to the Mystery Academy, the sect with the most technical ability among the 5 major gates of the Righteous Alliance. The headquarters of Mystery Academy located in Liang Province. It's different from the other sect's headquarters, which was the higher the better. The headquarters of Mystery Academy was built in a plain, surrounded by mountains and complex and dense formation protection, fully showed the lonely and awkward character of the tech geeks. After presenting the jade pendant representing Qingming Sword Sect to the guarding disciple, Bai Qiran was taken to the reception room by him and then waited for the disciple to report. A moment later, the disciple came back and respectfully returned Bai Qiran's jade pendant to him, and then said, "Senior, sorry, the dean said he had no time to see you." "No time?" Bai Qiran blinked. "As I remembered, he has mastered the spell of making incarnation. If his main body is not free, I can just meet one of his avatars." The dean said that all his avatars are doing very important research work. "Then who did you meet?" This disciple's face was embarrassed by struggle and hesitation. After tangling for a moment, he looked around and whispered the truth to Bai Qiran. "Well, senior, the dean is actually reluctant to see you. He said that every time you come to Mystery Academy, there is no good thing happens." "Really? That's all right." Bai Qiran took out the shadow stone that recorded the influence of the steel and threw it, and said loudly, "Since Qiu Yuxuan, the dean of Mystery Academy, does not want to see me, our little sect, who has no technical background, can only rely on ourselves to study this image that records the energy and formation of Land Immortal. I wonder if the Jade Tower and Saint Buddha sect would be interested." As he spoke, he turned around, left the reception room and walked outside the door of Mystery Academy. After 2 steps, a panic shout came from Mystery Academy. "Sword Patriarch, please wait." The rumbling shock came, and a large group of people ran over from the inside of Mystery Academy towards Bai Qiran. They were wearing the same clothes and their faces were exactly the same. A handsome young man wearing a single piece of golden glasses. This group of guys ran to Bai Qiran, surrounded him, and some even shamelessly hugged Bai Qiran's thigh, shouting at him, "Sword Patriarch, please give me a glance." "Qiu Yuxuan." Bai Qiran found the main body among these many incarnations at a glance and said to him, "Don't you have no time to see me?" "Who says that? It's an honor that Sword Patriarch came to visit, how can I not see?" Qiu Yuxuan looked at the informed disciple with a straight face. "Are you slandering me behind my back?" The disciple panicked and quickly waved his hand. "Sir, not me, I don't dare to. Anyway, never mind these little things. Sword Patriarch, photo stone?" Countless Qiu Yuxuan around Bai Qiran reached out to him at the same time, revealing the eyes of longing. "Please show me. Now you really look like a dog who sees a bone, forget it." Bai Qiran threw the photo stone and blank spirit stone together into Qiu Yuxuan's hands. "It's important. I'm not fooling around with you. The inscription on it has been translated by the 4th elder of our Qingming Sword Sect. Your Mystery Academy has the strongest technical ability. I hope you can find out the efficacy and running situation of the formation, and what is the energy to maintain the operation of the formation in this blank spirit stone. After figuring it out, I hope you can inform me." "Of course I will." Qiu Yuxuan took 2 things carefully, and then the surrounding avatars dispersed at once and went back to the Mystery Academy. "I will summon the elders and disciples to start studying these 2 things. Then I leave it to you." Bai Qiran nodded to Qiu Yuxuan. Although people have no temperament as the head of Mystery Academy, his research ability and creative ability were almost unrivaled in 9 provinces. "I will go back to Qingming Sword Sect first to see if anything strange has happened in 9 provinces and 10 places in the past 2 days. If you have found any results, you can send someone to notify me." In the headquarters of the Heavenly Demon Sect, Huangfu Feng also returned to the Heavenly Demon Sect's gate with the copied photo stone and the sample of the energy. His speed was slightly slower than that of Bai Qiran, but it was extremely fast. When Bai Qiran delivered things to Mystery Academy and returned to Qingming Sword Sect, he also rushed back to the headquarters of the Heavenly Demon Sect. As the great elder and former sect leader, Huangfu Feng was more famous than Bai Qiran in his sect. He directly ordered people to call Ji Lingyun, took out the 2 items and asked, "Lingyun, which sect in our evil alliance is the best at studying formation and energy?" "Which sect is the best at studying formation and energy?" Ji Lingyun froze for a moment, saying, "If you talk about people, there are still a few, but there is no sect in the evil alliance that specializes in these things. Everyone is studying the magic skills and formations of their sect individually. Did you figure it out yourself too? Besides, the evil alliance is said to be an alliance, but everyone is also guarding themselves. Who will want to study the formation for the other sects? That's it. Huang Fufeng froze for a moment, then thought. Lingyun, I think we should reflect on why the evil side hasn't prevailed in the past 3,000 years. After Qingming's sword patriarch got something, he went to Mystery Academy without hesitation. The two were silent for a moment, and Huang Fufeng returned to his senses and commanded. Lingyun, you gather all the talents of this area in our sect and then send people to the Kamasutra sect and Ghost Spirit sect, and tell Su Xiangxue and the old skeleton that it is an important matter about the future of demonic cultivators. Ask them to the staff who are good at researching this aspect to our heavenly demon sect so everyone can cooperate and study together. Qing Province, Xiling Kingdom. Elder Lu, along with several disciples of Skyforging Castle, appeared at the foot of a mountain. They were originally ordered by the sect leader Yu Chenlian to go to the Dongling Kingdom to investigate the sudden appearance and disappearance of the ancient city in the Dongling Kingdom, with a large number of people. But after they arrived, the king of Dongling Kingdom sent another message that the ancient city appeared again in the Xiling Kingdom. Dongling and Xiling were split from a country called Qingling. The two countries were in a state of war for a long time. However, the relationship between the two parties has improved recently. At present, the king of Xiling was the son-in-law of the king of Dongling. Of course, the relationship between countries was not so simple. The establishment of diplomatic relations between the two countries did not mean that the monarch of Dongling has put down his vigilance against the monarch of Xiling. If the conditions were right, he would never mind pushing the army of his son-in-law to the trap. It's better to push his own soldiers to the trap. However, this ancient city incident has caused golden core cultivators missing. The situation was clearly beyond his control. The monarch of the Dongling Kingdom was a cautious person, so he handed this matter to Skyforging Castle. At the same time, the monarch of the Xiling Kingdom was also reminded, so when the ancient city appeared again in the territory of the Xiling Kingdom monarch sent an army to control the situation and did not let the nearby martial arts master and small cultivation sects approach the place, and also notified Skyforging Castle through his father-in-law. After receiving the news, Elder Lu sent a disciple to bring the data and news back to Skyforging Castle and then took the remaining disciples to the place where the ancient city was. Elder, the ancient city is there. A disciple pointed to the mountainside and Elder Lu looked up. Sure enough, he could see a huge city halfway up the mountain, which was very abrupt compared with the surrounding forest. Take out the puppet and move on carefully. Elder Lu whispered. All disciples who are under the nascent soul stage stay in place to control the puppets. Those who are or above the nascent soul stage will follow me. Once you find that the situation is wrong, you will retreat immediately. Hearing his orders, the disciples of Skyforging Castle who were present took out many humanoid puppets from their pockets. These puppets were built by them but were designed by Mystery Academy. These things were expensive but their fighting power was very good. After learning, cultivators who manipulate them can also exert the strength beyond their cultivation level. This group of puppets brought by Elder Lu was the backbone of Skyforging Castle, and the fighting power of each puppet was comparable to a cultivator at the peak of the nascent soul stage. Cultivators of this level, even in some in the middle sect, were elders or the sect leader. All the disciples of Skyforging Castle in the Golden Core stage stayed in place, and some used divided mind, manipulating these puppets, keeping up with the steps of brothers and elders in the same door. Elder Lu took disciples who were or above the nascent soul stage, holding a variety of powerful magic weapons, flew carefully, approaching the ancient city from the midair to the mountainside. When they're above the ancient city, Elder Lu and a group of disciples looked down. The interior of the ancient city was as dark as the description. Even they used illuminate spells, it could not be seen clearly. Elder Lu pondered for a moment, raised the tool in his hand which looked like a lantern, and poured the powerful energy of the deity transformation stage into it. The flame inside the lantern suddenly turned into a sea of fire, spreading for several miles, and from that sea several fire dragons flew out. Under the control of Elder Lu, they circled and roared and crashed into the ancient city. Fire Dragon's head crashed into the darkness that enveloped the ancient city, and then, just like a bull sank into a mud swamp, disappeared without any trace. It won't work. Elder Lu put away the flames and further heightened his vigilance. He led his disciples to the gate of the ancient city slowly, and then, just like knowing their arrival, the gate of the ancient city slowly opened toward the inside automatically. Charge your energy. Be alert. Elder Lu took a deep breath and shouted to the disciples. At the same time, all the disciples carried out the forging mentality technique to increase the resistance of the mental attack. Sure enough, at the next moment, from inside the ancient city, a bell sounded. When the bell's sound came into the ears of the disciples, it turned into a terrible buzz, as if there were hundreds of thousands of people, who were chanting to you incessantly in your ears. The language, as if there are hundreds of heavy hammers, was bombarding your spirit and will one after another, but fortunately, Elder Lu let these disciples exercise their forging mentality technique first to resist, otherwise their minds would be directly destroyed by this mental attack. But even in this case, some disciples who still lacked in mind training and cultivation were shocked by this attack. The ancient city seemed to be aware that these comers could not be taken by the bell alone, so it changed the attack type. The darkness in the city surged for a moment like a hard object, then suddenly from the darkness, a group of strange humanoid creatures came out. These humanoid creatures looked like were directly generated from darkness, and there were white lines on their bodies, forming strange runes. After walking out of the darkness of the ancient city and seeing Elder Lu and the disciples, these dark creatures' head, which was like a hollow mask, suddenly cracked a large crack with intertwined teeth, which should be their mouths. These dark creatures screamed at them like a bell. These screams were also mixed with the mental attack, but it was much weaker than the bell. They screamed and moved towards the crowd. During the charge, black flames were spurted out behind their limbs and body, which gave the disciples a sense of threat. Elder Lu raised his hand and waved on the lantern, turned the flame into a wall of fire, swept the black creatures that rushed out. After the fire attack, dozens of black monsters fell on the spot. The black shell started to fall off on half of them, revealing the body below. Elders, those are the missing sergeants of Dongling Kingdom. Someone saw the clothes on several of the dead body and exclaimed suddenly. It's not time to pay attention to these things. Elder Lu looked at the remaining half of the black monsters who stood up from the ground. Although he just shot casually just now, after all, it was the flames released by a deity transformation stage cultivator, coupled with one of the highest magic weapons of the Skyforging Castle. Half of the black monsters were still surviving, and judging from this ability to resist, they were not weaker than Golden Core cultivators. Ready to fight. Elder Lu took a deep breath, but he still had no idea. A dozen common Golden Core cultivators were nothing to him, but Elder Lu can remember that there were thousands of people who disappeared with the ancient city. Among them there were also some Foundation Establishment cultivators, and even 2 Golden Core cultivators. If ordinary people and soldiers, after being reconstructed by the ancient city, can have the strength of Golden Core cultivators, then what kind of strength reconstructed cultivators will have? Looking at half of the monsters that screamed, Elder Lu's heart was swaying, like the light of his lantern. The fierce battle has continued for a long time, and the nearby ground was full of dead bodies, and many puppets have been scrapped and destroyed. The disciples of Skyforging Castle were exhausted, their true chi was empty, their head was full of sweat. Even Elder Lu, who was at the deity transformation stage, felt a little overwhelmed. Even if these dark monsters have only the lowest Golden Core cultivator's combat power, they may not be as good as any Golden Core disciple, but no matter how weak, that was still Golden Core cultivator's combat power. Not to mention, the dark matter that attached to them still had a certain resistance to the true chi. After killed hundreds of monsters, the disciples of Skyforging Castle who were not good at fighting were finally approaching the edge of exhaustion. It seems that it is no longer possible to enter. Elder Lu looked around, seeing that the disciples of Skyforging Castle basically didn't have the ability to fight anymore, but in the dark, that strange monster still spawned all the time. He decided to retreat in his heart, thus he raised the lantern in his hand again, vigorously released the fire of the magic weapon, and a sea of fire was formed at the gate of the ancient city, blocking the path of the dark monsters. Go! Elder Lu shouted. The disciples of Skyforging Castle summoned their last surplus force, driving flying swords off the ground. The Golden Core disciples who supported from outside also manipulated these expensive puppets to run towards the sea of fire without hesitation. Some dark monsters rushed out of the sea of fire were pushed back by the puppets, and then a series of huge explosions sounded, and the whole mountain began to shake. The smoke spread, but Elder Lu knew that the ancient city was absolutely unharmed. He seized the opportunity to take the last group of disciples to the sky. Elder Lu himself stayed behind to cover them. Bong. However, at this time, bell sounds were suddenly heard in the ancient city, and mental attacks ambushed them. The disciples quickly used their technique to resist, but that made their pace slowed down. After the first bell, all the disciples were dizzy, but at this moment the second bell suddenly came one after another, and then the endless burst of bells, like the tide, struck everyone's spirit and completely delayed their footsteps. Elder Lu gritted his teeth, lifted the lantern in his hand and flicked it outward, and then the lantern began to show cracks on the body and exploded. The flame inside the lamp spread to form a sky-covering fire lotus, which enveloped everyone, temporarily isolating the mental attack, but Elder Lu, who exploded the magic weapon, was implicated and spit out a big mouthful of blood. "Elder!" the disciples of Sky-Forging Castle exclaimed. "I'm fine." Elder Lu wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. "Run fast, this matter is not something we Sky-Forging Castle can handle alone, we must bring the information back to the Righteous Alliance." The disciples of Sky-Forging Castle obeyed his command and gathered together. Under the shelter of the fire lotus they rose all the way. But at this moment the smoke above the ancient city dissipated, the darkness inside surged and several black sword beams burst out. These sword beams swiftly traversed and crossed, forming multiple black straight lines on the sky, which were woven into a dense pattern, trapping the fire lotus inside. "This is a sword formation." The disciples of Sky-Forging Castle responded too late. More than a dozen dark monsters with more complex runes on their bodies, riding various black flying swords, rose into the sky and surrounded them. From the number, this should be the group of missing Foundation establishment cultivators. From the energy they released, they all had the ability of the nascent soul stage. These monsters roared while driving the flying sword to attack Fire Lotus. The disciples of Sky-Forging Castle hurried to fight back, but one side was full of momentum and the other was exhausted. Soon, all the disciples of Sky-Forging Castle fell into decline. When those black sword beams pierced into the Fire Lotus and be burned, they immediately exploded, tearing the fire around and making the disciples of Sky-Forging Castle exposed. The buzzing bell sound immediately took advantage of this to enter, and some disciples who could not bear the mental attack and froze in place. "Kill?" They lowered their heads and murmured in a quicker and faster rhythm. "Kill the Green Emperor and recreate the sacred dynasty." "Wake up!" Elder Lu shouted loudly, reaching for the disciples, but the dark monsters around him rushed up. He was forced to retreat, and he could only watch the disciples were brainwashed by the bell sound and fell into the boundless darkness of the ancient city. The bell's rhythm became faster, and the fire lotus was completely torn. Elder Lu felt bitter in his heart. Not to say that to protect these disciples, even he himself was about to be forced into a desperate situation. In this critical moment, there was suddenly a huge snow-white beam flew across the distance of 100 miles, breaking the sword formation that surrounded the disciples of Sky-Forging Castle. Elder Lu. A handsome middle-aged man dressed in a snow-white gown and carrying a long blade appeared. "Are you all right? Senior brother Yu." Seeing this person, Elder Lu's eyes lit up. The person who came was the representative of the military force of Sky-Forging Castle, the older brother of the sect leader, Yu Qianren. "Why are you here? Did the sect leader let you come?" I was looking for materials for Qianlian. When I heard about this on the way back, I came to see it." Yu Qianren flew towards them. "Come on, I will take you out." Several disciples were captured by the ancient city. Elder Lu said bitterly, "There is nothing we can do for them right now, let's go back first." Yu Qianren turned his head, then in the next moment his expression changed. Two monsters with more complicated runes surfaced from the darkness. Their heads had horns, their hands were controlling the magic weapon, and when they stopped in front of everyone, exuding a terrible atmosphere comparable to the deity transformation stage. Behind them, thousands of dark monsters who were equal to golden core cultivators appeared in the sky, forming a dark cloud, blocking the escape path of the disciples of Sky-Forging Castle. "It seems that the owner of this city is not willing to let us leave." Yu Qianren held the back handle with his backhand and said in a deep voice, "Elder Lu, I will open the way for you. In any case, you must pass the information about this ancient city to Qianlian." On the 7 Stars peak of Qingming Mountain, Bai Qiran was researching the copied photo stone. Although the original photo stone and blank spirit stone have been delivered to the Mystery Academy, He also left a copy, used to see if there was any opportunity to inspire him to break through the foundation. While he was staring at the formation model of all angles on the photo stone, the voice of his disciple suddenly came from his ears. Master, not good. Tang Ruowei was riding the Kunling sword, flew from the main peak and hurriedly landed, shouting to him. What's the fuss about? Bai Qiran glanced at her lazily and said. Your chest has grown? I think it's a bit bigger. No, this is not the time to talk about that. Tang Ruowei shook his head and stuffed a letter into Bai Qiran's hand. Look for yourself, this is what the elders let me bring to you. Bai Qiran took it, opened the envelope and checked the contents. On the stationery, such a sentence was written in black and white. The mysterious ancient city appeared in Qing province. All the disciples of Skyforging Castle who went to investigate mysteriously disappeared, including Thousand Forging Sky Blade, Yu Qianren who went to the rescue. Only Elder Lu was back, but he's seriously wounded and fell into a coma. Qing Province, Skyforging Castle Headquarters. As a famous refining sect gate in 9 provinces, in order to facilitate the forging of powerful instruments, Skyforging Castle set up their headquarters on a boiling active volcano. After thousands of years of transformation, the people of Skyforging Castle exert their wisdom, taming and transforming this active volcano into a world furnace for refining. Despite those dense workshops and warehouses, the headquarters of Skyforging Castle did indeed look like a castle, except that the fluid around this castle was flowing volcanic lava. Huang Fufeng came to Skyforging Castle with a heavy face. After entering from the mountain gate and showing his identification, he was taken to the sect master's room by the disciple of Skyforging Castle. In the room, many people have come before Huang Fufeng. He looked up and found that apart from the sect leader Yu Qianlian, they were all the big shot of righteous cultivators. Elder Su Xuelin of Mystery Academy, Zhang Ruifei, the battalion commander of Black Armor Battalion of Heavenly Army, Elder Dan Qinglu of Jade Tower, Saint of Painterly Pengfei, but he did not see any one of his peers. That's because righteous cultivators had slower cultivating speed compared to demonic cultivators, so everyone from his generation was in closed-door cultivation to prepare for the heavenly tribulation. Yu Qiandao should be able to the heavenly tribulation stage soon. Huang Fufeng sighed in his heart and stepped into the room. Seeing the head of the evil alliance, people in the room had different expressions on their faces. Elder Su of Mystery Academy shone his eyes, revealing a deep curiosity as if he wished to cut Huang Fufeng into slices on the spot to research. Zhang Ruifei, the commander of the Heavenly Army, showed a fighting intent, and Elder Li of Jade Tower, who had the worst relationship with the Heavenly Demon Sect, looked like he saw a human-shaped shit pile. Huang Fufeng ignored them, but went straight to Yu Qianlian and said to him, Little Yu, I'm here. Big Yu? It doesn't matter, I know it all. Yu Qianlian was not very spirited but said calmly, Please take a seat. If Brother Huangfu is here, only the Qingming Sword Sect, St. Buddha Gate, Hehuan Sect and Ghost Spirit Sect are left. Relax, Little Yu, the representative of Qingming Sword Sect should be Sword Patriarch. Huang Fufeng relieved Yu Qianlian. With that old man's ability, he will surely be able to save Big Yu. But Elder Su of Mystery Academy couldn't help but say, If Sword Patriarch came at his speed, should he have been here already? Are you guessing? On the side, Zhang Ruifei coughed, and Elder Li couldn't help stepping on him. Old Li, why do you step on me? I'm telling the truth. The elder from Mystery Academy, who was not very good at communication, asked unconsciously. Because I went to inform the rest. Someone answered his question from outside the door. Bai Qiran pushed the door to walk in, followed by Su Xiangxue who was wearing a veil, and another figure wearing a black cloak which covered his face entered the room together with them. The representative of St. Buddha's sect this time was Weiqin Master Monk. He was going to investigate the information on the way, so he didn't come this time. After we have discussed here, just go and meet him. Bai Qiran looked around the crowd, and then suddenly bowed towards Yu Qianlian. Little Yu, I'm sorry. This time he really scared the people around him who knew his identity. Yu Qianlian jumped directly from the chair and avoided Bai Qiran's salute, asking, Why did Sword Patriarch say this? This time I am going to bear the main responsibility for the disappearance of the disciples of Skyforging Castle, the disappearance of your elder brother Yu Qianren, and the serious injury of Elder Lu. Bai Qiran straightened up, recounted to everyone present that he and Huang Fufeng went to the wilderness to investigate the mysterious steel, and then said, I also let Huang Fufeng help me lead the way. If we don't activate the steel, this ancient city should not appear, so the main responsibility should be on me, and I will do my best to resolve this incident. Sword Patriarch is too fond of taking responsibility by himself. Yu Qinlian shook his head and said, Now that the stone tablet is accumulating strength, it shows that it is activated sooner or later. Sword Patriarch just happened to meet it. The responsibility is not on you. But this Yu Qinlian still kindly asks Sword Patriarch to help me save my brother and other disciples. I will. Bai Qiran stepped aside and stood with the other 3 representatives of Righteous Alliance, while Su Xiangxue and the man in the black robe came behind Huang Fufeng. The 2 people took a seat at the invitation of Yu Qianlian and began to discuss the matter. Let me talk about the beginning and the end of the ancient city incident. Yu Qianlian subconsciously held his chin and then said, Probably more than half a month ago, that is, a few days after Sword Patriarch and Huangfu brothers explored the wilderness, an ancient city shrouded in darkness suddenly appeared in a mountainous area in the northwest of Dongling Kingdom. This ancient city got the attention of local people and martial arts masters, and then the king of the Dongling Kingdom and several nearby sects also received the news. They separately sent their force to investigate. A total of 5,000 soldiers, 16 Foundation Establishment cultivators, 2 Golden Core cultivators explored the ancient city. We didn't know what happened at that time. We only knew that all of these people disappeared together with the ancient city. After that, the monarch of Dongling Kingdom asked me for help, and I notified Righteous Alliance. At the same time, Elder Lu and his disciples were sent to investigate, and then they received the news and went to the Xiling Kingdom. My brother Yu Qianren heard about it on the way back and followed them. Then they encountered the mysterious ancient city that appeared there. Only Elder Lu made it back with serious wounds. Senior Lu Chong. Elder Li from the Jade Tower in Xianqing asked. His consciousness was hit hard, and when he came back he was seriously injured and unconscious. Yu Qianlian replied. But fortunately we have the habit of carrying a photo stone with us for work. In his photo stone we still saw some useful things. While talking, Yu Qianlian took out the photo stone and played the video recorded in the open space in the middle of the room. The content of the video began with Elder Lu leading a group of disciples to find the ancient city, and ended with the scene that the 2 longhorned dark monsters with thousands of gold core stage monsters rushed towards Skyforging Castle disciples. Everyone was silent. After a long time, Su Xiangxue sighed and took the initiative to say, Everyone, it seems that we have come to put the differences aside, again. She looked around and asked, This time, Righteous Alliance and Evil Alliance cooperate again. Do you have any opinions? What Su Xiangxue said sounds ironic, but it actually makes sense. Looking at the images recorded in the photo stone, this ancient city and the monsters it produced are not good things to deal with. As the 2 major organizations in Kyushu and Ten Lands, Righteous Alliance and Evil Alliance are united. Although there are inevitably many ugly insides when such things appear, it is their incumbent responsibility to stand up and protect the established order of Kyushu Ten Lands. After Su Xiangxue's words fell, the first response to her was the 2 colleagues of Evil Alliance. Huang Fufeng and the missing Yu Qiandao were friends. Naturally, he would not sit idly by and respond immediately. Sect leader Su's words are reasonable. Ghostly old man, what do you say? The ghost spirit sect's representative, whom he called the ghostly old man, thought for a while, then replied in a hoarse voice. No comments. I support sect leader Su's decision. On the side of Righteous Alliance, Bai Qiran, as the representative of Qingming Sword Sect, first responded, and then he looked around and asked. How about you 3? I have no opinion. Elder Su of Mystery Academy immediately said. It would be better to say that if we can study this kind of unheard things that we haven't seen, our Mystery Academy will be very happy. Neither do I have an opinion. Commander Zhang Ruifei of the Heavenly Army replied. The duty of the Heavenly Army is to protect the human races of 9 provinces and 10 lands. The last one, Saint of Painter Li Pengfei, looked around and sighed. Damn, all the good things have been said by you. What else do I say? If our Jade Tower does not agree, we will not come here. Then there is no disagreement, just start to deal with this matter. Bai Qiran suggested. Xiaoye, besides this photo stone, does Elder Lu have any information left? No. Yu Qianlian shook his head. Elder Lu was unconscious when he came back. In fact, he fell a few hundred meters outside the mountain gate. It happened that a disciple who was returning to the mountain saw him and brought him back. That's no way. Chiron bowed his head and said, "Now, we know almost nothing about the ancient city, how it works, when and where it came from, how it appeared and disappeared, how it transformed people into that weird look. These are all of us, it's not clear, we need more information." Su Xiangxue, Ghost Old Man, and Huang Fu Feng glanced at each other, then Su Xiangxue said, "On the way we have dispersed all the manpower that can be dispersed and used the intelligence network to query the intelligence as much as possible. As long as the ancient city appears again, we will be able to quickly locate it. We have also mobilized the intelligence network of our sect." Elder Li of Jade Tower and Zhang Ruifei of Heavenly Army also replied. Among the sects of two factions, Jade Tower and Kamasutra sect's intelligence network can be described as the best in the world. After all, the most well-informed in this world was always the merchants, and among the merchants, the most well-informed was the one who did prostitute business like Kamasutra sect. Especially all the disciples who had a charming technique. Normally after 1 or 2 glasses of wine, the guests would speak everything. With your intelligence network, there should be no problem. Chiron glanced at Su Xiangxue. Remember not to let anyone come close and record the place where it appears. There may be rules to follow. I know. Su Xiangxue responded tacitly. At this moment, the representatives on both sides looked at them with subtle eyes, but when Chiron's attention was shifted from Su Xiangxue to them, the gang showed a tacit understanding, showing a gesture that said, "We didn't notice what just happened." Next, for the things I brought back with Huang Fu Feng's help, Elder Su, did your dean have any results? Chiron turned to look at Elder Su of Xian Fa Academy and asked. As soon as we received your things, the dean had gathered the elders and started to study them, but we still couldn't figure out the energy. Elder Su shook his head. However, we have taken a glimpse of the formation. The dean led us to successfully simulate the formation using true qi and reverse engineered it. It is amazing that the formation seems to be 2 different rules are merged together. For our side, I handed it to Xiao Lingyun and asked her to find other evil sects who are good at tinkering with them, and study it together. After seeing Elder Su finished, Huang Fu Feng also added. Coincidentally, we haven't made any progress in the study of the method of confrontation, but under the derivation of a direct disciple of the devil sect, we successfully condensed energy that is similar to that energy's nature. What energy is that? Elder Su asked curiously. Everyone else looked at Huang Fu Feng. If our disciple's derivation is correct, it is the immortal qi obtained after a demonic cultivator become an immortal. Just like how the true qi in your body transformed into immortal qi after you ascended. Huang Fu Feng said in a deep voice. That energy was condensed by me with her instruction. Its nature is slightly different because of the exercise, but the basic nature is the same. So I think what Sword Patriarch said earlier about the so-called land immortal may not be nonsense or boastful. That may be a real immortal or an immortal-like existence who stayed on this realm. Hearing this sentence, not only Yu Qianlian but all the faces on the scene were sinking. Although when Righteous Alliance and Evil Alliance jointly joined forces, they could defeat even a real immortal, but who knew in that ancient city what exactly was the strength and quantity of land immortal? What is really scary is not a tough enemy but an unknown enemy. Okay, don't think too much. At this time, Chiron, who was still the sanest, first encouraged everyone. He clapped. Since that ancient city didn't directly show up to kill us, it means that they are not as strong as us, or at least they haven't been sure they can beat us. Otherwise, they must directly crush and rule 9 provinces and 10 lands. Wouldn't it be better than let us do whatever we want? It made sense. Zhang Ruifei said in a deep voice. Furthermore, even if they have the strength to crush, do we just succumb to it? At least we must resist until the end, otherwise, it would be humiliating to say it. But to say so, we can't underestimate the enemy. Chiron added. After all, they come from our unknown times or regions, what abilities they have, what magical powers and formations they manipulate, we have absolutely no knowledge of these. So I suggest that you should not be in a hurry right now, it is better to be steady and do one step at a time. First, spread the intelligence networks out. Once we found something, we organized a team to investigate, and then, even if they can't come back, at least we must ensure that they can pass back enough information to research and analyze. Is that fine? Master, where are you going to take me? Seeing the surrounding scenery quickly passed, Tang Ruowei asked Bai Qiran, who was pulling her arm. After receiving the letter from the sect leader before, Bai Qiran ran down the hill somberly and came back a few days later. After that, he went to the main peak and discussed something with the sect leader and several elders, then looked for Tang Ruowei and without saying a word, dragged her down the mountain. Looking at the direction he went, Bai Qiran's destination should be Qing province, which was adjacent to Gu province. Where are we going? Bai Qiran's footsteps did not stop, looking forward. Take you to study? Are you not interested in those miscellaneous studies now? So you want to take me to learn these things? Tang Ruowei asked. Aren't you urgent for these 2 days? It's really a matter of urgency, but this is also your chance. This time there are experts who are really good at these miscellaneous studies. Follow him to learn and help by the way. Bai Qiran replied. Arrived. His footsteps slowed down, and Tang Ruowei looked up and found that there was a tall and majestic mountain in front of him. At the top of the mountain was a huge inward pit, and lava erupted continuously from there, down the foothills, and the top of the mountain spouted. The billowing smoke covered the whole sky in the dark clouds. The danger was not only lava but also the smoke from the eruption of the volcano that could affect the breathing system of mortals. Ordinary people could not even survive a day in this environment. However, in front of this volcano, there was still an artificially spiraling mountain road. The stairs of the mountain road are made of some black metal, which could float on the lava without being melted. Bai Qiran took Tang Ruowei up the mountain road, walked up the mountain gate engraved with the words Sky Forging Castle, and passed several flying bridges made of black metal, leading her to a hut which was built on a lava lake. Perhaps after receiving the notice in advance, an old man greeted him from the house. Bai Qiran pointed at the man and introduced Tang Ruowei. This is Elder Su from Mystery Academy. He is proficient in various miscellaneous knowledge such as surveying and mapping, formation, astronomical phenomena, and earth veins. He is a research expert in this field. Then he turned his head and pointed at Tang Ruowei to introduce to Elder Su. Elder Su, this is my idiot student. Although she has neither strength nor body curves, there is still a little cleverness in her mind. You can use her as a free laborer during this day and take her with you whenever you have time. Hearing this, Tang Ruowei also reacted. She knew Bai Qiran was finding a professional instructor for her, so she was busy greeting the Elder Su. I'm Tang Ruowei, hello Elder Su. Good. Elder Su looked at her and then said, I didn't expect Sword Patriarch to accept a disciple, but it also works. Sword Patriarch is kind to me at Mystery Academy. I also need manpower to study and analyze the operation rules of the ancient city here. You can be my assistant for the time being. If it's okay, I'll go back to work first. He looked like an anxious man, looking back frequently when he was talking with Bai Qiran and Tang Ruowei, as if there was a beautiful woman in his house. Perhaps for these technical geeks of Mystery Academy, the desire to satisfy curiosity may be even higher than that. Seeing him like this, Bai Qiran couldn't help but smile, and then said to Tang Ruowei, You will stay here first. This incident is not trivial. You are not allowed to run around. You have to listen to Elder Su's arrangement. Do you understand? Yes, I do. Looking at his expression, Tang Ruowei, who knew that things are different, nodded honestly. This time she didn't talk back to Bai Qiran again. Then I will leave first. Bai Qiran said to Elder Su. Sorry for disturbing your work, please continue. After leaving Tang Ruowei with Elder Su, Bai Qiran ran non-stop to the territory of the Nanling Kingdom in Qing Province. There was originally only one country in Qing Province, named the Shangling Kingdom, but when Bai Qiran was more than 2,000 years old, it split up and formed the four kingdoms. There, Wuxian Master Monk, the representative of Saint Buddha sect, was waiting for Bai Qiran there. After that day's discussion, the major sects have reached a consensus. They launched the intelligence network. They also sent people to notify Saint Buddha sect. On the way to come, Wuxian Master Monk and others began to pay attention. As a result, they found a trace of the ancient city near the Nanling Kingdom, so he sent a message and stayed at the place where he discovered the trail, waiting for others to join. According to the message from Wuxian Master Monk, Bai Qiran ran all the way to the place he found. It was a small mountain village near the river, and there was a certain distance from the nearby towns. Due to the beasts in the nearby forests, the villagers in Pingrili village did not like to move around. There was very little contact with the official government of Nanling State. The tax staff of the city basically only come here once a year when they collect taxes, so this time when the ancient city appeared, It was not possible to receive the news in the immediate vicinity. Baichuran came outside the village and found that the village was already uninhabited. Only the disciples of Saint Buddha's sect walked back and forth. These disciples dressed in a monk's clothes has a bare top, so they were quite recognizable. Weichen Master Monk was meditating near the entrance of the village. He sensed Baichuran's arrival and got up and greeted him. Although Weichen has the title of a master monk, he did not look like a monk who spoke Zen at all. He had a flat head with only a layer of light hair, and his face was full of flesh. He looked very bad-tempered and had a wide body. The monk's clothes were stretched tight by his muscles. This master monk used to engrave the learned Buddhist scriptures and imitated Buddha idols on his body. A wrathful image of Nether King exposed from his arm. The ferocious expression of Master Qinchan looked like a gangster who has been in criminal for many years. "Hello, Sword Patriarch." Coming to Baichuran, the monk raised his hand and performed a Buddhist salute to Baichuran with one hand. "Long time no see, Weichen." Baichuran smiled at him. "Skip these greetings, the situation is urgent. You don't have to stick to these ceremonies. What is the situation here?" "Yes." Weichen Master Monk nodded slightly to Baichuran, as if to salute his eldest brother. Hearing Baichuran's words, he took Baichuran to the village and said, "This is the way." On the way we came, we followed the Buddhist teaching and practiced along the way. We received your notice halfway. Then I heard that something strange happened here and there was a fog. I took the disciples and looked at it. On the way, I met a hunter and said that he saw a city appearing on the river here on the cliff. I came with my disciples and found that there was no one in the village here. Is the hunter who witnessed the ancient city still there? Baichuran asked. Of course, after we discovered that the village had become like this, we immediately asked him to stage. Weichen Master Monk replied. He is in the village now, and I sent 2 disciples to protect him. It will take some time for the others to arrive. Take me to ask him. Baichuran said. Also, although I have already asked him, since Sword Patriarch wants to ask. Weichen Master Monk led the way to the village. This way, please. I'm afraid that your face is too vicious, so scared that the hunter has nothing to say. Baichuran laughed. Weichen Master Monk touched his head, but he did not refute it because it was indeed possible. Under his leading, Baichuran saw the hunter. After some inquiries, Baichuran understood the basic situation but was not able to ask more things out. That man was just an ordinary hunter. Both Baichuran and Weichen Master Monk have used mind awareness scan to perceive his true identity, and there was not much energy active in his body. According to the hunter, he had just caught a rabbit at the time, and when he went down the mountain he accidentally saw fog in the direction of the village. After the fog had dispersed, a city appeared on the river. But with his eyesight, he couldn't see what happened in the village after the city appeared on the cliff. After that, he met the Weichen Zen master who came with his disciples, but this time the city has gone along with the dense fog. Baichuran went to the river where the ancient city he was referring to once again wandered around. Near the river, he noticed that there was a tendency to disturb the energy of heaven and earth. Here the energy should have been swirled by something. But many of the formation or spells could achieve this effect, so this time Baichuran still got nothing. Somewhat unwillingly returned to the village, Baichuran calmed down his mind. This time he was facing an enemy who was unheard of. To analyze their method, more clues were needed. After waiting for a while in the village, the rest of the alliance came here after receiving the news. Because the first ones were the nearest, the staff this time was also different from the last time. Except for Qingming Sword Sect, other sects' representative has changed. Baichuran and Weichen Master Monk went out to greet the village. After seeing the representative of Kamasutra sect, Weichen Master Monk's already vicious face turned into a wrathful appearance. Ouch! Seeing the anger on Weichen's face, the female elder of Kamasutra sect, who dressed in a thin black gauze, also had a giggling face. Why does Weichen Master Monk look so angry? Am I not welcome here? Mu Huan, you still dare to talk? Weichen Master Monk said angrily. You were there last time when we Saint Buddha sect was clearing the pornography. Why is it always you every time we clear the pornography? The elder called Mu Huan from the Kamasutra sect, and Weichen Master Monk who was from Saint Buddha sect had quite a complicated relationship. Weichen Master Monk was a cultivator of the Saint Buddha sect who practiced the Nether King path. As a result, he was a morally indignant man, so he has been active in the front line of the anti-pornography campaign of the Righteous Alliance for a long time. In 1,000 years he has shut down countless dens of Kamasutra sect. Mu Huan was a senior of Su Xiangxue, the best hooker of Kamasutra sect, and has been actively walking on the verge of violating the agreement for a long time. In the early years, when the leader of the Kamasutra sect was not Su Xiangxue, the two had fought many times and became rivals for hundreds of years. After a series of agreements and Su Xiangxue came to power to reform, the activities of the Kamasutra sect were not allowed to cause casualty anymore. Mu Huan moved from the frontal battlefield to the technical work, helping Su Xiangxue to start managing the Kamasutra sect's business. However, this elder Mu Huan has a hobby, that was when carrying out private technical activities, she liked to open the den near the temples of Saint Buddha sect, and specialized in corrupting young Buddhist monks. Therefore, the hostile relationship between her and Wuxia master monk has not yet improved. So when they meet now, Mu Huan still started provocatively against Wuxia in a light-hearted manner. Ouch, your anger is really strong. Hearing Wuxia master monk's words, Mu Huan stuck out her tongue and licked the corner of her mouth. According to Buddhism rules, wrath is a crime. Master Wuxia, you can't be angry. Fuck. Wuxia master monk rolled up his sleeves, exposing the Nether King on his arm. This Wuxia worships the Nether King, who specializes in cleaning up the evil being like you. Come on, go and beat me. All right. Seeing that the two had a tendency to fight on the spot, Bai Qiran shouted. It's important to do the right thing first. Wuxia, control your anger. Mu Huan, say less about an unrelated matter. Hearing Bai Qiran's words, Wuxia master monk tried to control his emotions. He closed his mouth and walked to meditate and begin to chant the Buddhist sutra. Mu Huan glanced at Bai Qiran with a little fear, closing her mouth and walking slightly away from him. In the Kamasutra sect, only Su Xiangxue was not afraid of Bai Qiran. For others, especially Mu Huan, the old remnants of the former dynasty, still remembered how Qingming Sword Patriarch killed their sect leader. After Bai Qiran stopped the two, the embarrassing atmosphere lasted for a few seconds and no one spoke. Then an elder from the Nether Ghost sect took the lead and asked, "Everyone, let's not waste time, let's talk about the information found by each sect in the past few days." Seeing everyone nodded, he said slowly in a low voice. After the meeting that day, our sect searched the area near the headquarters. As a result, an unmanned village was found in the area north of the Honeycomb Land, and there was also a vortex of aura in the village. It looks. He raised his finger to the river beside the village. Like this. The Honeycomb Land was where the headquarters of the Nether Ghost sect located, one of the 10 lands. Its geography was special. The ground in this area was a layer of rock that had thousands of holes, covered with countless downwards and bottomless pits, and below these pits and rock formations, there was one underground hollow, an area comparable to a province. Because it's underground, with densine energy and no light, not only there were many rare herbs and treasures which couldn't be found on the ground, but there were also many dangerous spiritual creatures such as wandering souls, zombies and skeletons. That's why the Nether Ghost sect moved here. But these were not the focus of everyone's attention at present. Honeycomb Land was tens of thousands of miles away from Qing province. The trace of the ancient city also appeared in Honeycomb Land, which meant that its range of movement was not limited to the Qing province. Everyone looked at each other and thought about it. Afterward, Mu Huan of Kamasutra sect and the Elder of Jade Tower also explained that the two sects' intelligence networks found the suspected appearance of the ancient city in Yun province and Liang province respectively. Both sects have received reports about places that suddenly became uninhabited. How exactly does it move? At this moment, everyone fell into deep thinking. Skyforging Castle, inside the hut occupied by Mystery Academy. Tang Ruowei, who had been busy all day, walked out of the hut with the others, stretched her back out and took a deep breath. Her nasal cavity was full of the sulfur smell, but compared with the busy day, it's also a good relaxation. After a long day of intense mental work, the girl feels that her brain was dizzy and swollen. After rubbing her temples, the girl was going back to her room for rest. Although she only helped to make various calculations and deductions under the command of Elder Su, Mystery Academy's technique still made Tang Ruowei feel quite rewarded. But when she had just turned around and walked towards the room arranged by Skyforging Castle, behind her came the voice of a girl. "Hello, junior sister." Tang Ruowei turned her head in surprise. A girl who was as beautiful as she appeared in front of her. That girl was wearing a long red dress with brocades, Her eyes were picturesque, her black hair was like a waterfall, and she was slender. The girl's figure was just right, one more point was fat, and one less point was thin. Her face was not as charming as Su Xiangxue, but it's beautiful. Looking at the girl who greeted herself suddenly, Tang Ruowei hesitated. Senior sister, you are? I am a disciple of Heavenly Demon Sect, and I came to help like you. My name is Li Jinyao. The girl gently introduced herself to Tang Ruowei. I watched it for a while. This time it seemed like only the two of us were girls, so I thought to come and say hello to you after a day of work and get to know you. Hello. Perhaps it was Huang Fufeng who gave her harmless impression, so Tang Ruowei didn't react very much after hearing that the girl was a Heavenly Demon Sect's disciple. Hello Sister Li, I am Tang Ruowei of Qingming Sword Sect. I am 24 years old, currently the foundation establishment stage. After walking on the cultivation path, the sense of time became blurry. At this time, Tang Ruowei barely remembered how old she was this year. If she hadn't joined the Qingming Sword Sect in the Shangshuan Kingdom, such an age meant that she was already a mother of 2 children. 24-year-old, but already in the foundation establishment stage. Li Jinyao somehow felt a little more intimacy. She smiled. Your advancement is very close to me. It seems that junior sister Tang is not an ordinary disciple. Who is your master? Yeah, it's quite unusual. Tang Ruowei's eyes flickered. In Qingming Sword Sect. No, it should be said that in the entire Righteous Alliance, I may be the only foundation establishment stage cultivator whose master is still in the Qi refining stage. Qi refining stage. Li Jinyao was stunned, surprised and said, Junior sister Tang, do you mean your master is the sword patriarch of Qingming Sword Sect? Tang Ruowei thought about it, then nodded and said, the elders of Heavenly Demon Sect as well as the big demon I met before, did call him by that name. Do you also know him? Oh, in our evil alliance, only some small sects don't know about Sword Patriarch. After all, this is a matter of survival. When a disciple joins an evil sect, the first cultural class they take is about Sword Patriarch. You can say that our disciples generally don't dare to do anything to righteous cultivators in the Qi refining stage. Li Jinyao laughed, not to mention, since my master accepted me as her student, she has always wanted me to target Qingming Sword Patriarch, hoping that I could surpass him one day. It seems that senior sister Li is talented. Tang Ruowei curiously said. Then do you think you might surpass my master in the future? It depends on what aspect. Leaving aside the cultivation level that I have surpassed him for a long time, if it is housework like cooking and laundry, I am very confident that I'm better than him. Li Jinyao laughed. Cooking and laundry. Tang Ruowei was speechless. But in terms of strength, mentality, etc., I think maybe I can't beat him. Li Jinyao smiled and said. After all, he has been stuck for more than 3,000 years in the Qi refining stage yet can still live to the present without giving up the hope of a breakthrough. At least I think I can have this level of perseverance. I once have decided that if I don't break through in 2 or 3 years, I will give up cultivation and go back to my hometown to marry someone. Marry someone? Tang Ruowei froze for a moment and then reacted. Li Jinyao said she would go back to her hometown to marry someone if she doesn't have a breakthrough in 2 or 3 years, but she is still here. Doesn't it mean that she has walked all the way to the present and has never been stuck in a level for more than 3 years? Moreover, as Tang Ruowei sensed, the true qi in this sister's body was calm and strong. It didn't seem to be a quick advance exercise usually found in demonic cultivation. It's clear that every step was cultivated to a satisfactory level before breaking through. Like my master, this is another monster. She secretly panicked. However, Li Jinyao did not react, and she nodded with a smile when she heard Tang Ruowei muttering to herself. Yes, marrying someone, don't you think it's better to find a good husband and spend the whole life with him as a family? After all, no one knows whether or not a demonic cultivator can ascend to immortality. By the way, when it comes to this, Sister Ruowei, when will you have a chance? Can you introduce me to Sword Patriarch? What? Tang Ruowei said. I think you don't need my help, but what do you do when you see him? Look at whether he is suitable for me. Li Jinyao blinked and replied without thinking. My ideal husband must fulfill some conditions. First, he must be stronger than me so in the future he can protect me and our family. Second, his cultivation can't exceed me too much, otherwise he will ascend in the future, leaving me alone. Thinking about it, Sword Patriarch has matched both conditions, I just want to see if it's suitable or not. I know this. Tang Ruowei didn't know how to answer. Li Jingyao was obviously the future leader of the heavenly demon sect, but she thought of marrying every day. She remembered Su Xiangxue, who was the leader of the Kamasutra sect but was still a virgin. Are all demonic cultivators that strange? The girl forgot to look at her efforts to practice the bodybuilding exercises in order to change her life, which was also very strange in the eyes of other disciples of Qingming sword sect. After thinking about it, Tang Ruowei said, "Not to mention this, Sister Li, if your master knows your plan, will she definitely not agree?" "Of course she won't agree, but it doesn't matter. At most 200 years the master is not my opponent." Li Jingyao smiled like a flower. "It will be a big deal to bully the teacher and destroy the ancestors. Anyway, that's our motto." Tang Ruowei saw that Li Jingyao was determined to meet, and thought about Bai Qiran's usual annoying look, so she replied, "Well, when the master is free, I will introduce you to my sister. But let me say it first. My master's mouth is particularly annoying. If you can't stand it, don't fight with him at that time. You can't beat him." After sorting out the information in the mountain village of Nanling Kingdom, Bai Qiran and others dispersed. Some disciples of Saint Buddha sect stayed in place to guard the mountain village. The rest of the disciples followed Weichen to Skyforging Castle. Other representatives also went back to their sect. As for Bai Qiran, he walked around at random to see if he could gather any information. However, 9 provinces and 10 lands were extremely vast. Bai Qiran walked around several times yet failed to see the ancient city appear. However, after a period of observation and summarization, Righteous Alliance and Evil Alliance also came up with some rules of the ancient city's movement. First, according to the traces of the ancient city, combined with the time when Bai Qiran and Huang Fufeng witnessed the activation of the stele, the interval between the disappearance and appearance of the ancient city was generally about 3 days. Second, every time the ancient city appeared and disappeared, it's always accompanied by a thick fog. Third, the place where the ancient city disappeared would leave an aura vortex that would not dissipate for a long time. Fourth, the scope of action of the ancient city was not limited to Qing province, as there were traces of it in all places in 9 provinces and 10 lands. However, with Qing province as the center, the farther the distance, the less the frequency of actions. Fifth, the ancient city abducted people by a bell sound. If the number of people nearby reached a certain number, the ancient city would be activated and try to abduct these people. If the bell sound was not enough to capture the spirit of the target, the ancient city will dispatch a wonderful dark monster to take the target by force attack. The dark monster seemed to have been transformed with the body of the captives inside the ancient city, but at present, they neither knew the specific details nor encountered a living sample. Everything was speculated from Elder Lu's video. At present, the people of Mystery Academy have begun to try to see if they can predict the next location of the ancient city according to these rules, and Bai Qiran, who has failed to search, has returned to the forging dock. He could help speculate, and in case the people of Mystery Academy really predicted the next location, Bai Qiran's speed and strength were the highest among all the people present, thus it's most appropriate to let him test the city first. However, when Bai Qiran returned to Skyforging Castle, looking for the disciples of Mystery Academy came out, he was found by his apprentice Tang Ruowei shortly after, along with a young girl he didn't know. After looking at the pretty little girl, and at the disciples who had some guilty conscience, Bai Qiran wondered. "Hey Ruowei, I found that after the two of us haven't seen each other for a while, when we meet again, you can always bring a beautiful little girl with you. You really were born into the wrong gender." "What nonsense are you saying?" Tang Ruowei's eyes widened. She understood what her master was referring to. After pretending to carelessly support her chest, she gritted her teeth and said, "This is Senior Sister Li Jingyao from Heavenly Demon Sect. She told me she wanted to see you." "Huh? Li Jingyao?" Hearing the name, Bai Qiran gave her a surprised look. "Are you the one with the heavenly demon physique that the Evil Alliance recently tried their best to hide? Are you the Qingming Sword Patriarch?" Li Jingyao did not deny it but looked up and down Bai Qiran carefully. "Well, your look isn't bad, Master." At this time, Tang Ruowei, who heard the conversation between the two, asked, "What is heavenly demon physique?" "That is a legendary physique recorded in the divine narrative classics of the evil sects. For demonic cultivators, it's even considered superior to the heavenly level spiritual root. It's equivalent to the full attribute of the heavenly level spiritual root. No matter what kind of demonic technique, The one with heavenly demon physique could learn it quickly without any side effect. This physique has only appeared in the classics, and it is rumored to disappear after the end of the last era. Bai Qiran looked at Li Jingyao and said, and she is the only heavenly demon physique that was born in the last 3,000 years. It was understandable that the evil alliance want to hide her from the righteous alliance. Then how do you know? Tang Ruowei spit her tongue out. Su Xiangxue told me. Bai Qiran replied. I drank with her, boasted a bit, and she happily told me this. Betrayer. At this moment, even if she was very fond of Su Xiangxue, Tang Ruowei couldn't help shouting in her heart. I have long heard that sect leader Su has a great relationship with Sword Patriarch. I didn't expect her to even tell you this kind of news. It seems that she is basically undefended against you in her heart. Li Jingyao said with a smile. That's because she knows I won't hurt her. Bai Qiran looked up and down at Li Jingyao. However, since you are a heavenly demon physique, you should have learned her phantom charm, right? How can I not see the effect? Because I changed a bit so I was able to turn it off at will. Li Jingyao said, suddenly blinking at Bai Qiran with one eye. Look. At this moment, her body suddenly released an endless charm, and Tang Ruowei's unguarded face turned red when she brushed her face, but Bai Qiran was still expressionless. Well, that's what it is. After watching for 2 seconds, he commented. You changed the method I changed and the charm effect can be closed, but the power of the charm is reduced by a few points. Moreover, this trick can be pulled off completely because of your physique. This is a change that only suits you. Li Jingyao froze for a moment, then smiled bitterly. You are indeed Sword Patriarch. I had to think for 2 years before I succeeded. Even my master took a long time to figure out, but you see through it with a glance. I just live longer than Ji Lingyun. Bai Qiran said lightly. I do not understand. After Li Jingyao put away the charm, Tang Ruowei, who finally recovered, shook her head and asked. Is this terrifying charm effect also a side effect? You can't put it away, of course it is a side effect. Bai Qiran glanced at his disciples. You think if Su Xiangxue finds a person with low charm resistance in the future, then just look at her every day, this man will die in 2 years, do you say this is a negative effect? Tang Ruowei blushed and nodded. Okay, I have watched it, so go back to work. Bai Qiran waved his hand. Now hurry up and try to predict the movement trajectory of the ancient city. I have to think of a method. Speaking of this, in fact, I have an idea. Li Jingyao suddenly said. Huh? Any ideas, though? Now is the time to think out of the box. Bai Qiran sat down at the table and said. Please sit down, Miss Li Jingyao. Ruowei, don't just stand there. Thank you. Li Jingyao and Tang Ruowei sat down next to each other, and then Li Jingyao continued. I used to help Elder Su from Mystery Academy. Although he was cautious, I still saw some clues. He speculated that it seemed that the ancient city relied on the power of the Earth's vein to move so quickly and operated. It is also some kind of escape technique that we don't know, which can be perfectly integrated into the Earth's vein. Well, there's nothing wrong with this idea. Bai Qiran nodded and said. To support such a big ancient city moving back and forth, it really depends on the power of the Earth's veins. But I don't think so. Some places in the ancient city are not on the nodes of the Earth. Li Jingyao continued. So I was wondering if the ancient city used other powers. After all, in this world, the Earth's vein is not the only natural power that can be drawn from. For example, the power of the celestial phenomenon, which is the opposite to the Earth's veins. What do you think? The power of the celestial phenomenon. Bai Qiran lowered his head slightly and thought for a moment, then took a map of 9 provinces and 10 lands from his arms and unfolded it on the table. On the map, some places were marked with swirling symbols, and those were the places where the ancient city once appeared. Without the sky chart, Bai Qiran used his chi as a pen to draw a star chart directly above the map from his own memory. Li Jingyao also walked up, and the two quickly compared the position of the vortex on the map and the chi astrological map in midair. No, it's not astrology. Li Jingyao was disappointed. It seems I guessed wrong. It's okay, this is not something you can guess by chance once or twice. Bai Qiran comforted. At least you have opened up ideas for us. Your ideas are correct. The technology of the ancient city may far exceed our conventional imagination. Okay. At this time, Tang Ruowei, who had been staring at the map and did not speak, suddenly asked. Master, Do you think there may be some special meaning in these places? Ha! Bai Qiran froze for a moment, saying, "What do you mean? In other words, didn't you just say? This ancient city has technology that far exceeds us, so I thought, maybe it is not moving because it doesn't have enough energy and must be moved by the power of heaven and earth, but because, for some other purpose, it must move to these locations." Tang Ruowei said. "For example, a formation." Before she finished, Bai Qiran and Li Jinyao have begun to use the qi to outline various possible formation models on the map. The two moved as fast as lightning, but because of their experience and knowledge, they retain an extraordinary tacit understanding. Although they worked at the same time, not only they did not disrupt the other's pace, but also complemented each other's omissions in their thoughts. Gradually, a formation appeared on the map, covering the entire 9 provinces and 10 lands. This is... Li Jinyao's face dimmed. Although the specific effect is not clear, looking at the composition of these runes and formations, this may be a way to awaken something. Bai Qiran murmured. "Wait a little while for me, I'm going to check." After he finished speaking, he stood up and ran out at a speed that Li Jinyao and Tang Ruowei couldn't see clearly. He came to the place where the ancient city appeared the first time, which was located in the Dongling Kingdom. Like other places after the ancient city disappeared, there was also a vortex of aura that did not disperse. Bai Qiran walked around the vortex, suddenly pulled an iron sword from the storage bag and split the air. This time he completely focused the sword beam, and the white light on the blade almost condensed into substance. As the blade of the iron sword turned into iron sand, he also opened a black crack in the void. Through the cracks, Bai Qiran successfully saw the internal scene. Numerous spiritual energy was pouring in from the surroundings, and the mist on the other side of the space was gathered into a fog visible to the naked eye. Someone has quietly opened another space in this place. It's like a hole cut out in a flat piece of paper, and the surrounding spiritual energy was continuously flowing through the small crack into this space, formed a vortex of aura that would not dissipate. So it turns out to be this. Looking at this space, Bai Qiran said to himself, "I get it, everything is connected." He returned to the room. Li Jinyao and Tang Ruowei were still waiting here. When he saw him coming back thoughtfully, Tang Ruowei asked quickly, "How is it, Master?" Bai Qiran recovered, reached out and rubbed Tang Ruowei's head, saying, "Thanks to you, now I know the goal of that ancient city." "What exactly is going on?" Li Jinyao curiously said. "It's just my guess, but it's very likely the truth," Bai Qiran said. "I went to the place where the ancient city first appeared to verify. The aura vortex, there is actually a small space that was opened up. At the center of the vortex, there are some space cracks that are hard to see with the naked eye. Through these fissures, one after another, they continue to converge into another space. I think that should be the same in other places. These things are the eyes of a formation." Li Jinyao glanced at the map. "That makes sense. Using small spaces to make eyes of a formation, they may be able to create a formation that covers 9 provinces and 10 lands." "Yes, and the purpose of this formation is to wake up something," Bai Qiran continued. "I remember when Huang Fufeng and I saw that the steel was activated in the wilderness, the blue light emitted by it was densely scattered. At that time I thought those signals were all going to this ancient city, but if each light spot represents a city similar to this ancient city, then... Endless dark monsters of the Golden Core stage." Li Jinyao then replied. "I still don't know the upper limit of the number of transformations, but even if the number of monsters that an ancient city can carry is only as much as shown in the image, then their force far exceeds the number of cultivators in the League combined by the Righteous Alliance and the Evil Alliance. This is still not counting stronger monsters that have been transformed from cultivators." Bai Qiran sighed. "Call everyone, we should discuss the follow-up plan." The representative who united in Skyforging Castle was once again called together. Bai Qiran told his guest to all the sections. After listening to his explanations and deductions, the representatives began to contact their sect, and Elder Su of the Mystery Academy hurriedly took the people to research the formation map created by Bai Qiran and Li Jinyao to deduce where the ancient city would appear next time. With the formation map, the progress of Mystery Academy suddenly improved a lot. In less than a day, Elder Su marked the most likely place where the ancient city would appear next. "Now it depends on whether the ancient city can verify our conjecture," Elder Su said to the representatives present. "But this is only the first step. We still don't know whether this ancient city needs time to prepare for its appearance and disappearance. This directly relates to the success of our operations. Because according to their guesses, the ancient city is autonomous. It is powered by energy and then moved between spaces. At present, the space technology of our cultivation world is far from mature. Once it breaks away into other spaces, it is difficult for us to capture its traces. We need to explore its other data. Leave it to me this time, Bai Qiran said. Since I want to force it to run away, then I will go out and see what tricks it has. In the Liang province area, there was an uninhabited wilderness with hundreds of miles of prescriptions, reed bushes which were as high as a person, swamps and rivers with dangerous creatures like snakes, crocodiles and even dragonic serpents. No normal human would come to this place. But here was the location of the next jump of the ancient city, according to the speculation of Xian Fa Academy. If the ancient city really appeared in a place where there was no inhabitant in 100 miles, it would prove by Qiran's speculation that the purpose of this ancient city's continuous movement was not to capture human but to form a formation. Bai Qiran came here one day earlier, hiding in the designated place, waiting for the arrival of the ancient city, while other people were waiting tens of miles away to avoid being affected by the bell sound. Finding a dry place in a thick reed bush, Bai Qiran sat down and quietly condensed the qi in his body, trying to form the true qi to kill the boring time. The sun went up and down and the day passed quickly. Bai Qiran's attempt was still unsuccessful. A thick fog silently appeared and enveloped him. Sighing helplessly, he continued to suppress the impulse to break through, then stood up and walked towards the dense fog. The fog in front of him seemed to be dreamy and unpredictable. Deep inside it, he saw the ancient city appeared silently in the dense fog. It seems we guessed right. Looking up at the closed gate tower in front of him, Bai Qiran thought for a moment and raised his hand. Unmatched qi began to converge on his palms, prepare to strike. Seeming to be able to sense the danger, the gates of the ancient city suddenly opened inward at a rapid speed, and then the bell sounded in a rapid rhythm. Bing bing bing. The bell sound went into his ears, and the entrapped mental attack strangely and trickily attacked Bai Qiran's consciousness, but Bai Qiran condensed his consciousness and formed an indestructible fortress. The mental attack hit his mental defense and dispelled without the slightest effect. He probably wanted to measure the intensity of these mental attacks. Having preparations in advance, even a nascent soul stage cultivator would not be affected by it, but if he was in a fierce battle, this bell sound would indeed become very annoying harassment even for the deity transformation stage. Bai Qiran stepped forward, his hands were still full of energy, and then took a palm shot in the direction of the ancient city gate. The unmatched qi turned into a huge golden palm imprint and flew towards the gate of the city. The darkness in the gate surging. A group of dark monsters came out and used their own body as a shield to block the front of the palm print. But there was no effect. The palm rolled over like a bulldozer, crushing the darkness in the city gate like a broken bamboo. The invisible shock wave spread, the reeds were pushed down in all directions, the ground swelled like a wave, and the darkness at the gate also dispersed for a moment, allowing Bai Qiran to peek inside. Inside the city gate there was a stone avenue. On both sides of the avenue are 2 rows of dragon-headed lion-shaped beasts. In the eyes of the beasts are several runes that Bai Qiran has never seen before. The darkness around it seemed to be surging like a tide, covering the scene in the city again, but Bai Qiran had written down the shape of the few runes he saw. In the next moment, a roar was heard in the darkness. 10 monsters with long horns above their heads rode on weird black flying swords, flew up from the ancient city, and attacked Bai Qiran. These monsters should be the disciples of Skyforging Castle who were missing, but at the moment, under the control of some kind of mysterious will, they launched strange moves that did not belong to Skyforging Castle. Some had never even been seen in the cultivation world. The swords flew in disorder, and the sword beams they emitted were turned into black straight lines, interlaced in the air, reflecting dazzling light and making attacks. Dozens of sword beams drilled from all directions, even into the soil, and attacked Bai Qiran at the same time. But Bai Qiran simply raised his hands, moved so fast that it turned into a phantom image, and blocked these sword beams without exception. These black sword beams with terrible power were flicked away by Bai Qiran's hands, some fell to the ground and cut a dozen cracks into the ground, and some flew into the distance, cut some nearby hills and explode them. But Bai Qiran, who received these attacks, noticed something strange. The attack is at the level of peak deity transformation stage. I remember that many of these disciples were in the nascent soul stage, and there were even several peaks in the nascent soul stage. Bai Qiran thought about it. According to the information obtained from the video data, after the reconstruction of the city, Golden Core disciples were transformed into dark monsters comparable to the deity transformation stage. According to this speculation, the nascent soul disciples should be one level stronger, became the physique integration stage. But now it seemed that this terrible infection really had its limits. So what about Yu Qianren? Bai Qiran made up his mind, his figure moved instantly, and in the blink of an eye, he appeared in front of one of the black monsters, stretched his hand to grab his neck, and then raised his hand to his head. The turbulent palm power was completely controlled by Bai Qiran's amazing self-control ability, which stripped all the black energy covering the monster, but did not hurt the individuals inside. The dark monster's shell looks like mud blown away by the hurricane, exposing the possessed individual. After the dark shell was stripped, the exposed person was indeed a disciple in the uniform of Skyforging Castle, but he was still unconscious even though Bai Qiran did not hurt him. Bai Qiran reached out and touched his nostril, found that he didn't breathe, and then dived into his spiritual platform in Purple Palace. Both places were empty, and he saw neither this cultivator's deity soul nor true chi. His soul is gone. Bai Qiran threw the Skyforging Castle disciples in his hand to the ground. Dozens of surrounding monsters surrounded it again, and the sword beams changed again, puncturing Bai Qiran's body at a more tricky angle. Seeing this, Bai Qiran also slowly raised his palm. The souls of these possessed people have dissipated, which was really not good news for them, but it also meant that at this moment Bai Qiran could attack without any care. The unimaginable outburst of chi turned into a mad tide. The black sword light blasted out was directly blown back by this energy storm, and the surrounding dark monsters were instantly stirred into fragments. The person who was hanged upside down on the gate of the ancient city was really the elder brother of Skyforging Castle's sect leader, Yu Qianren. Bai Qiran sensed with his soul awareness and found that Yu Qianren's spiritual platform and Purple Palace were still there, and his deity soul and seven-color true chi of the physique integration stage were also remaining. He pondered for a moment, then took out an iron sword from the storage bag, poured his chi into the sword, and then inserted the iron sword on the stone road in front of the city gate. Then he jumped over and took Yu Qiandao off the gate of the city, carrying him away. When Bai Qiran left, the darkness around him immediately gathered back. They seemed to consciously want to exclude the foreign object that Bai Qiran left behind. On his sword, a terrifying sword beam erupted, pushing the darkness around. After several rounds of trial and error, it was all in vain. The darkness could only helplessly surround the iron sword, trying to slowly corrupt this thing. On a high slope dozens of miles away from the ancient city, Su Xiangxue, Huang Fufeng, Master Weichen, Zhang Ruifei, Elder Su, Li Pengfei, as well as the ghost old man and Yu Qianlian, all stayed here, looking at the ancient city in the distance. Bai Qiran has successfully rushed into the city just now, and now they were waiting for his news. He came out. After a moment, Su Xiangxue suddenly said softly. Everyone was refreshed and looked in the direction of the ancient city. Sure enough, they saw Bai Qiran rushing out of the ancient city, followed by a lot of dark monsters and the non-stop bell sound. He seemed to carry somebody on his shoulder. He was still carrying a person, but that didn't affect his speed. With one hand carrying an unconscious body, he fought and slaughtered the dark monster with the other hand, running towards them. All the way to the high slope, Bai Qiran put down the body on his shoulders. Su Xiangxue greeted him first. "Are you all right?" she asked. "It's okay." Bai Qiran shook his head and turned the man's body on the ground up so that everyone could see his face. "Brother?" Yu Qianlian lost his voice. He rushed up quickly, picked up Yu Qianren, asked the disciples to bring a stretcher, and gently placed Yu Qianren on it. Some disciples of Skyforging Castle followed him back, while the rest came to Bai Qiran. Elder Su of Mystery Academy asked Bai Qiran. "Sword Patriarch, what's the situation inside?" Bai Qiran briefly described the situation inside the ancient city, and then said, "I didn't go in too deep because I had to save Yu Qianren, but the runes in the eyes of the strange beasts have been written down by me, and I will write you out for research." That city disappeared. At this time, Su Xiangxue reminded everyone. Everyone turned back together. Sure enough, inside the reed field, the ancient city gradually disappeared into the fog, which also slowly dispersed. Elder Su quickly took out the shadow stone and recorded the whole process of the disappearance of the ancient city, while Bai Qiran withdrew his gaze and said, "Don't worry, I left my sword there. As long as it appears again, I can sense its position so that I am not afraid of the ancient city consciously changing its position." Oh yes, the Qingming sword sect's disciples have a link to their swords. Huang Fufeng nodded and said, then suddenly froze for a moment, saying, "No, Sword Patriarch, as I remembered, isn't your sword just a normal iron sword? Although it isn't my vital flying sword, I can sense its position as long as my qi is on that sword." Bai Qiran glanced at him angrily. "Do you have any opinion?" "No opinion, no opinion." Huang Fufeng arched his hands and then quickly found an excuse, checked the situation of the old friend, ran to Yu Qianren's bed, avoiding Bai Qiran's eyes. Bai Qiran ignored him and turned to Su Xiangxue and others to continue to ask, "Have you recorded? How long did it take for the ancient city to appear and disappear?" "Recorded, a total of 5 minutes and 40 seconds. Li Pengfei of Jade Tower drew a pocket watch from his arms and replied after checking the time. "Exclude the possibility that because the Sword Patriarch rushed into the ancient city and made it not dare to move, it should be about 5 minutes between its appearance and disappearance." 5 minutes, enough. Bai Qiran nodded. Judging from the time he rushed into the ancient city, there was no stronger method to deal with him. The ancient city should run out of tricks. In 5 minutes, if Bai Qiran really sprinted in full force, then even if there were some traps deep inside the ancient city, it's highly likely that it would not be able to stop him. If there was no way to stop the transfer of the ancient city at that time, then he would destroy the ancient city. Others started to be busy with their own affairs. Elder Su began to study the images of the disappearance of the ancient city that they had recorded. Su Xiangxue went to Yu Qianlian and began to express concern about Yu Qianren's situation. Bai Qiran, who was doing nothing at this time, suddenly felt familiar nether energy. He looked around and found a familiar figure under a nearby tree. Seeing that other people didn't pay attention, he walked towards him. "Yo!" Xueling, who was observing the situation ahead, suddenly heard a familiar voice behind him. He turned his head and saw Bai Qiran walking towards him lazily. "Xueling, what are you doing here?" "Anyway, I'm not here to catch you, rest assured," Xueling replied. Bai Qiran walked to Xueling and stood still, and at this moment, a female soul-taker standing behind Xueling also asked, "Brother Xue, can this stranger see us? Who is he?" Bai Qiran looked at this female soul-taker, unexpectedly discovered that she was actually a very beautiful little girl. She had very little makeup on her body and looked very clean and comfortable. Apart from her pale face, she had no shortcomings. More important, this female soul-taker also has a pair of huge boobs, which stretched the uniform on her chest tightly. Bai Qiran looked at Xueling and then looked at the woman who was pulling his clothes, suddenly felt jealousy. Damn, even ghosts have a girlfriend. Bai Qiran thought. This man is the big sinner in the Book of Life and Death, the infamous Bai Qiran who has escaped death for 3,000 years. Xueling pointed to Bai Qiran and introduced it to the female soul-taker. Then he noticed Bai Qiran's complexion and asked, "Do you have any comments?" Bai Qiran looked at the female Zine and then asked, "This one is?" "She's Ming Ying, my subordinate and lover." Xueling reached out and hugged the woman's shoulder, and the woman's yawn gave a small exclaim. A pale red flashed on her pale face, but she didn't refute it. Maybe it's an illusion. Bai Qiran saw a smug smile on Xueling's dead face. "Fuck, even a dead ghost like you has a girlfriend, but I am still single. This world is really unreasonable." Bai Qiran whispered in a low voice. "Okay." Xueling turned his head to look in the opposite direction. On the high slope, Su Xiangxue looked at Bai Qiran absently while speaking programmatically, so he withdrew his eyes and said coldly, This is what you brought yourself." "Okay, I won't talk to you anymore," Bai Qiran asked. "It's rare for you to come to the world of living in person. What happened?" "You should know this." Xueling sighed very rarely. "Recently, thousands of souls are missing here for no reason. All belong to people whose lifespan hasn't ended yet, so I come here to investigate." "Okay." Bai Qiran pointed to the reeds not far away. Are those people?" "I've seen it. From the bodies, they are indeed those people, but I can't find their soul, thus it's useless to me." Xueling shook his head and said, "I was recently promoted to the position of director of this world's department, and such a big incident happened." Have you been promoted? Congratulations. Bai Qiran froze for a moment and said, that means in the future, you Xueling have the final say to everything related to life and death on this world. Bai Qiran, who has dealt with the underworld many times, knew that 9 provinces and 10 lands was not the only world under the jurisdiction of the immortal realm. There were many worlds and other planes that were ruled by the immortal realm. On the road to cultivation, the final destination was also the immortal realm. Congratulations? No matter how good you say, when your life is over, I will not be merciful to you. Xueling said coldly. You're lucky this time, someone sent you a lot of longevity pill material. You still have hundreds of years to live, so cherish it. Bai Qiran touched his nose and remembered the materials that Su Xiangxue had given him before. If he went to collect by himself, it was estimated that he would have to forget it by then, and then he would have a fight with the soul takers under Xueling's command. Okay, if everything is fine, Mingying and I will go back. Xueling glanced at Bai Qiran, looking irritable. This time I knew that someone was looting the soul, but there was no response in the Book of Life and Death. What the hell has happened? Oh. Hearing Xueling's monologue, Bai Qiran reacted suddenly and shouted to his back. Wait. Xueling stopped and asked back. Is there anything else? This is the case. Bai Qiran told Xueling the whole story of the ancient city incident. Land Immortal? This is their doing? No wonder there is no response in the Book of Life and Death. After listening, Xueling murmured. Do you know Land Immortal? Bai Qiran asked. I know there are records in the books of the underworld. Xueling nodded. But all the land immortals in this world should have been ascended to the immortal realm almost 100,000 years ago. I thought there was no land immortal left in this world. Oh, what's the matter? Bai Qiran's eyes lit up and asked. I don't know the specifics. It's long before you and I were born. I just listened to some old seniors talk about it piece by piece, mostly unclear rumors. Xueling replied. So do you know the operation mechanism of that ancient city? Bai Qiran asked again. Let me see. Xueling hesitated, pacing back and forth, and looked up at Mingying again. Brother Xue, the rules of the underworld. I know. Xueling walked back to Bai Qiran and said. Listen, today you haven't seen me nor seen Mingying. I don't know that this incident was caused by Land Immortal, and the reason you know about Land Immortal City's operation mechanism, this Bai Qiran is the most talented and unparalleled in the world, so I can naturally figure it out by myself. Bai Qiran said immediately. Very good, I'll go back to the underworld to check for you. Wait for my news. Xueling took Mingying's hand. Also, although you assist me in solving this incident, it will not be counted in your credit. I don't care about those. Bai Qiran replied. I know, after all, in this mortal world, the only person who can fight with Land Immortal is you. Xueling said. I can only rely on you to solve this case. After all, I have also taken a look at the ancient city before you came, but the Book of Life and Death has no reaction to it. I think the soul of all these people has been destroyed by Land Immortal. Wait a minute. Hearing Xueling's words, Bai Qiran suddenly raised his hand and said. No response? I remember that the Book of Life and Death should have a response even to the physique integration stage cultivators? Yeah, as long as you haven't passed the heaven tribulation, your name is in the book. Xueling asked. What's wrong? Oops. Bai Qiran reacted immediately, and his figure turned into a flash of lightning, and ran towards the hillside beside him. Above the high slope, Yu Qiandao lying on the stretcher suddenly gave a weak moan. His palm moved slightly, and his eyes began to tremble with difficulty, trying to open his eyes. Sect leader. The great elder is awake. What? Brother? Brother? Do you feel okay? Some vague voices came from his ears. Yu Qianren slowly opened his eyes and saw Yu Qianlian, who was full of worrying and surprises in front of him. Great, you are still alive. Yu Qianlian almost wept with joy. Are you all right? Do you still recognize who I am? Ah, of course. Yu Qiandao showed a gentle smile. You are my family, my brother. During the talk, a strange black thing suddenly appeared in his hand, and he stabbed towards the back of Yu Qianlian. Be careful. In the blink of an eye, a figure flew by and reached his hand in front of Yu Qianlian's back. The strange thing also stuck on the back of his hand, and it cracked into pieces with a click. Ha! Yu Qianren flicked his mouth a little bit uncomfortably, his figure moved and instantly flashed aside from the stretcher. Do you think you can run? Others failed to respond, and even Huang Feng, who was the strongest here excluded by Chiron, was in amazement because of the sudden abdication of his friend. Only Su Xiangxue reacted. A jade music instrument appeared in her hands, and a melodious sound suddenly enveloped Yu Qianren. Charming technique. The enchanting charm in the music sound made the Yu Qianren feel turbulent for a while, but he instantly stabilized his mind, drew a blade from his waist, and a terrible huge beam instantly slashed towards Su Xiangxue, who was playing the music. Boom. A figure appeared in front of Su Xiangxue, blocked the beam with his hands. The white beam opened a crack of 100 miles in the wilderness. Bai Qiran, who just blocked the blow, raised his hand without hesitation, and slapped it to Yu Qianren. Bang. However, the figure of Yu Qianren was like a phantom. Bai Qiran's palm passed through the body of Yu Qianren and hit the hillside behind the high slope. The entire hill suddenly collapsed. Oh, I didn't expect that there will be such a strong man in the world after tens of thousands of years. Yu Qianren's body was shrouded in a thick fog, the same phenomenon when the ancient city was transferred. He looked at Bai Qiran and sneered. But after all, it's just an outpost. It can't be compared to the techniques of our sacred dynasty. Mortals, the time is coming and sacred dynasty will appear in this world again. After leaving those words, his entire body was wrapped in the fog and disappeared. Skyforging Castle, in the room of Bai Qiran. Su Xiangxue pushed the door in. How is it? Bai Qiran, who was sitting at the table, saw her coming in and asked quickly. Sect Master Yu's emotions have stabilized. Su Xiangxue replied. Fortunately, Skyforging Castle's exercise, like other typical righteous sects, particularly values the tempering of mind. So what the hell is going on? Li Jinyao asked. Why did Senior Yin Qianren suddenly attack his own biological brother? As if he actually changed into a completely different man. Before speaking on this topic, Li Jinyao, why did you appear in a single man's room and act so natural? Both Ji Lingyun and Huang Fufeng almost die by worrying. Bai Qiran squinted at her. Li Jinyao looked at Su Xiangxue, then Tang Ruowei, and then looked at him with very innocent eyes without speaking. One is my disciple and the other is my friend, but you are nominally the star of hope for evil sects. Yet you are so majestic to stay in the enemy boss's room. Is it really fine? Li Jinyao blinked and replied. I'm just curious. Alright, you can listen to it, but later you have to go back and tell the Heavenly Demon sect. Bai Qiran waved his hand and then began to talk about the main business. Yu Qianren attacked Yu Qianlian, that's because he was no longer the same Yu Qianren, he had been possessed by someone. Possessed? Li Jinyao blinked and asked. But the ghost old man of the Nether Ghost sect was also nearby, not to mention that we have all checked. Yuan Qianren's deity soul looked fine, how could he be possessed? I don't know, maybe this is a special technique of Land Immortal. Bai Qiran replied. I guess the thing he used to attack Yu Qianlian is probably the key to possessing. By the way, have you collected that thing? Elder Su has collected the debris and brought it back to study. Tang Ruowei replied. Wait, to put it this way, Master, you were also attacked by that thing? As she spoke, she took a step back and began to show alertness in her eyes. How do you still doubt me? Bai Qiran replied lazily. That thing didn't break through my defense at all, okay? Maybe it's shattered not because it can't break through your defense, but it because has already played its effect. Tang Ruowei lowered her head and thought for a moment, then suddenly asked. Master, do you remember how big my boob is? What? Su Xiangxue was shocked and angry. How does he know how big your boob is? Beast. What did you do to her? What? But Su Xiangxue did not expect Bai Qiran to be more shocked than her when he heard this question. This white-haired man heard the question of his apprentice and answered without hesitation. Ruowei, you still have a boob? Why didn't I know it? What? Ugh. Huh. Isn't it right? As soon as Bai Qiran said this, Li Jinyao and Su Xiangxue both looked at Tang Ruowei's chest, and then looked blankly at Bai Qiran, who looked at left and right, then looked at Tang Ruowei in confusion. Tang Ruowei lowered her head, and the atmosphere in the room became both embarrassing and dangerous. Looking down and shaking for a moment, the girl suddenly raised her palm and patted Bai Qiran's face. See my palm. Tang Ruowei's palm hit Bai Qiran's face, but the chi shrouded his body automatically made the force rebound, shaking her technique instead. Tang Ruowei clutched her palm in pain, took 2 deep breaths and then said lowly, "Okay, I confirm that you are my master." "Well, although I don't know what is going on between you and your master, judging from the snarkiness of Bai Qiu, Sword Patriarch, he is indeed the right one," Su Xiangxue said. "But what should I do now? After the occurrence of Yu Qianren, does that mean that any of us can be replaced by land immortals afterward? Then I can only wait for the research results of Mystery Academy. I suggest that during this time, everyone except Mystery Academy is prohibited from entering that area, including us." After thinking about it, Bai Qiran replied, "As for us, let's stop the ancient city and kill the guy who possessed Yu Qianren first." "Have you found a method to stop the ancient city?" Su Xiangxue questioned. "Wait a few days." Bai Qiran pointed to his feet and smiled. "I made a deal with the people down there." In the darkness, Yu Qianren sat on the throne in the central hall of the city, watching a mysterious rune appearing around him. He held down the 2 armrests of the throne and controlled the trajectory of the ancient city. Suddenly Yu Qianren's face turned red, and he spat out a big sip of blood from his mouth. He quickly reached over and covered his mouth. The rune in front of him was twisted and disappeared into the air. "It's just a scratch, is there so much power?" He looked down at the red in his palm, his face was grim. "This body at any rate, is also in the peak of the physique integration stage, but I'm still badly injured. Cultivators of later generations should also not be underestimated." He looked up for a moment, then pressed the armrest of the throne, and a huge map emerged in front of him. It was a detailed map that included 9 provinces and 10 lands, and even the wilderness and demon world. The site of Yu Qianren first crossed western soil and floated to the vicinity of the Broken Soul River. Since the territory of the Sacred Dynasty has receded from the Broken Soul River, has this area become the territory of these wild beasts? Thinking for a moment, he withdrew his gaze and set his sights on the various light spots that emerged in 9 provinces and 10 lands. "Well, when I awake my sleeping compatriots, sooner or later we will recover the lost territory." He reached out and tapped a few times on the map, then hesitated. "Those cultivators are able to catch me this time, they obviously have speculated on my movement path. Even if I am not afraid of group battles, but..." In his mind, Bai Qiran's shocking palm hit him again. "Forget it." After thinking for a moment, he reached out and changed the established trajectory of the ancient city. "For the sake of security, let's first lift the seal on Y's immortal mansion. In this way, even if that divergent cultivator can catch me and kill me, it doesn't matter." Both his hands moved at a fast speed, pinching out various hand seal that did not exist in this era. The ancient soul entrenched in Yu Qianren's body quietly arranged everything. Under his control, the ancient city turned a corner in the void of the void and moved quietly towards another location. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.